Hello, hello, hello. We're gonna talk about Plaid. Are you ready to talk about Plaid? I had a great time. I had an adventure, and I'm gonna tell you all about it. This is Plaid. This is the event. I was in that crowd. Franz von Holzhausen's about to step out. I met him in person, talked to him at least a little bit, talked to a bunch of other people. I'm gonna tell you all about it. A lot of great fun at this event. This is the official video of the event. You can see Franz walking out. You've probably already seen it, so you don't need to see more of that. So let me head back to what else is going on here. So I'm just going to show off. This is me at the event I'm wearing a different T-shirt. I'm wearing the Elon Be Less Wrong shirt. That one needs to be washed. So that's the Plaid badge. Sorry, that's the Plaid badge. I was in Group 0, which apparently is like a VIP thing. I don't know how I got the VIP thing. Got some other merch. Got the hat. This was my favorite merch, the Tesla blanket. The Tesla blanket, Jana Kreider got one too. She was really excited about it too. It's great for the plane ride home. So, and this was also part of the official broadcast, the official live stream. You can see Elon. This was Elon as the event was starting. Actually, one of the cool things about the event was that I came back. I'm gonna cut the sound on this in a second. This is at the beginning that Elon does this track, and I got to do this ride as well. They did a opening of the event after the event was over, after the live stream cut off. They gave us all test drives of the cars, so that was kind of cool. And Elon did the first test ride. I was actually close to that. I almost got to see a little bit of Elon giving the first test ride. So that was kind of, I mean, this is kind of cool. You know, you guys all saw this again. I'm going to cut it off. Here's Elon getting out of the car. I'm not letting the music play too long for copyright reasons. So, and you know, I was there at the stage. That's the stage in the background. A whole bunch of people waiting for, this is before Elon and Franz came out. This is just a shot from, this is where the group, this is where Group 0 was hanging out. You can see we're right along the track. Beautiful mountains. You're going to see the Plaid S cars are going to be lined up right here, right behind, right there. That's where I was standing before in the picture. And just to give you a little bit of flavor of the event. So, you know, people hanging out. There were snacks. There was, I didn't eat anything. There were drinks. You know, a lot of good stuff. I'm going to go more into that in a minute, but let's dive into what is the insider highlights from the Plaid event. I learned a lot that was not covered on the stage, that was not covered in the video that you saw, that Elon did not say from the stage. I understand that he actually had additional information and notes that he could have gone off of and didn't. But the biggest detail for me going into this event was, how does Plaid weigh so much less? How does Model S weigh so much? The Plaid version of Model S weighs about 170 pounds less than the previous Model S Performance, which only had 2 motors. This one has 3 motors. So you add a motor and you drop 170 pounds. That's pretty impressive. And I think it added like 40 miles of range compared to the previous Plaid. The Model S long range lost 320 pounds and even picked up a few miles of range. So how did they do that? This was a big question I had, and I got a chance to talk to some people and learn some things from after the event that corrected some of my prior misconceptions about how things are working. So, first thing, a lot of us were speculating that because of the delay of the Model S rollout, because of a lot of other things, we were speculating they're going to be using 4680 cells in the new Model S or the Model S Plaid. No. They're still using 1865 cells, and even there, I thought, because I thought it was 1865 cells, I thought they had upgraded the battery chemistry to get a higher watt-hours per kilogram, which would allow lower weight and still attaining longer range. No, it's basically the same chemistry. I was surprised by that. So I'm not going to name who I spoke with. I spoke with a few people. There's one particular source that was really good, that was very helpful. But the weight savings are from all over the car. A big chunk of the weight savings is in the design of the battery pack. think in particular, if you remember the old Model S battery pack, there was a chunk of batteries at the front of the battery pack, and that has been removed, and they saved a lot of weight in the front of the battery pack. They saved weight all over the battery pack. They found ways of making the battery pack lighter. Another big one that was a surprise to me, none of this should be a surprise, it's just I didn't think of it. The interior of the car. When they first made Model S, it was the first full-size car they made after the Roadster. They built the interior of the car the way the car interiors are built. They didn't go to first principles and say, how can we build the interior of a car and make that more efficient, lighter, less expensive, more comfortable, all the things that you can do to make a car better. They didn't put a lot of thought into that before this new refresh. And they basically built the interior. Oh, thank you, Not Financial Advice, for your support. They basically totally redid the interior, and they saved a lot of weight on the interior. Didn't see that coming. Adding the heat pump, switching from what they had before to the heat pump out of Model 3, Model Y, saved a lot of weight. There's a particular part that is shared with Model 3 and Y, and unfortunately, I'm having these conversations, and I have a voice recorder with me, but I'm not sticking a microphone in people's faces while I'm trying to have a casual conversation, so I didn't remember every little detail. Driving away, Ryan from Kilowatts drove me to a hotel. We had an after party. This was a great event. We had stuff before, we had stuff after. I'll get into that later. But I'm riding back to the hotel, and I'm taking notes, trying to remember everything that happened in that conversation because I got so much. And I sent myself like 10 emails with all these details. So there's some key part. I don't think it's the heat pump. I think it's another thing. Maybe it is the heat pump. It's just that bit isn't with me. But whatever this part is, they make 30,000 of these parts a week. And by using this part with Model 3 and Y, that's used with Model 3Y instead of whatever the previous part was with Model S, saved a significant amount of weight. Another thing, I thought there was a chance they were using single-piece castings, at least a single-piece rear casting, to reduce the cost of manufacture, to reduce the weight. No. They're not using single-piece castings like Model Y is using, at least not yet. But they did simplify the architecture, and there are fewer pieces, and there are larger castings. So they are casting pieces, they are putting things together, but there are larger castings, fewer of them. It does save weight. All these efficiencies and more allow them to do less batteries, right? If you had a 100 kilowatt hour pack, I didn't get specific numbers on this, but if you had a 100 kilowatt hour pack before, now maybe you only need a 90 kilowatt hour pack so you can take 10 kilowatt hours of batteries out. Well, that saves more weight. And then maybe you can take another 5 kilowatt hours of batteries out. So one of the things we should look for going forward, probably maybe even within a few days, but certainly within a few months, we'll know how many kilowatt hours is the battery pack in the Model S. I think it's the same pack between Model S long range and Model S Plaid. I'm not sure. I think it's the same pack. So no megacast, right? Okay. Oh, John Weixnar is in the chat. Hi, John. John, you're. I hope you don't mind, John. Your picture is going to be in this live stream. I met a whole bunch of people. I'm going to cover that later. So, John, you're going to be briefly mentioned in this live stream. So, another key detail, the 4680 in Tesla cars will only come from Tesla in the next year or two. I had the impression that they were getting Tesla's supplier partners to build 4680 cells to go in, say, Model Y. Because if you go back to Battery Day, the idea was Tesla was going to make high nickel cells, and they had this chart of which vehicle was going to use which chemistry, and these other vehicles would use nickel manganese, and these other vehicles would use iron phosphate. And the way I took that was all the vehicles would be using 4680 cells, using these different chemistries depending on the applications. So, and Matt Senkow, no 4680 cells in the Plaids. They're 1865s. If there's a key detail here about the 1865 cells. First of all, they're very good cells. They've been making them for a long time. They're still making them. They work. They're able to get this amazing high-performance vehicle using 1865 cells. If they didn't use the 1865 cells, what would they do with them? So this is a good use for them. So it's possible that Semi will use 4680 before Model Y. We'll see about that. That didn't come up in the conversation. So anyway, the key detail here, 4680 in Tesla cars in the next year or two, I think next 2 years, will only be Tesla high nickel cells. That's the impression I got I'm not saying that's hard. I'm saying I'm pretty confident of that detail. That the other battery makers are 2 years behind Tesla on the 4680 format. And Tesla is not sharing a lot of their intellectual property with others. I had the theory that Tesla was going to share the intellectual property about how to make the 4680 cells with their suppliers in exchange for you give us every battery you make. I'm not sure. It's the way it sounded to me was they're not really sharing a lot of intellectual property with their partners. So there's no, and there's another key detail. If you look at the 2023 compact, which is not that far away, that's supposed to use iron phosphate cells. Now we're in 2021 now, so it's late 2023, 2 years. That gives the other makers time to catch up with LFP. But my impression was that they're not planning to do lithium iron phosphate in 4680 cells. That's what I think I heard. Again, I didn't use a voice recorder. I didn't get it down exactly. And that's what I wrote in my notes 30 minutes later. So I'm pretty confident about that. I'm pretty surprised at that. I thought the plan was that all cells would go into a 4680 format. They would all take advantage of silicon, anode. They would all take advantage of the 4680 tabless. It sounds to me like that's not what's happening. So, very good stuff. Next, more about batteries. I have my notes right. I have notes in front of me for this, so I can tell you more about it. That's why I looked down. I got my notes down here. Here's my notes. More about the batteries. The 1865. So if you remember when the Model S performance was really lit, was really doing well, but it couldn't repeat its 0 to 60 times. And this was supposedly an advantage for Porsche, that the Porsche could go from 0 to 60, do these hot quarter-mile runs and just keep doing them again and again and again. And the Model S was getting tired. The Model S performance couldn't keep it up for long. A lot of people thought that was about batteries getting hot. No, it wasn't the batteries that were getting hot. And if you go back to Battery Day and think about it, they were talking about how as you scale up the size of the cell, you increase the heating of the cell, and the tabless allows them to reduce the heating in the larger cells. But the 1865 is a small cell, so that wasn't heating up in the first place. There were electric or electronic parts associated with the battery pack and powertrain that were overheating, that were causing this problem, if we can call it a problem. So they redesigned these electronics or electrical parts so those things don't overheat, and that enables the Plaid Model S to do these repeated launches. And they were doing it for at least an hour after that event. You know, Elon walks off the stage, the live stream cut off. They start doing these test rides, and they took us up to the beginning of the thing that you saw Elon launch from. Let me see if we can see this again. There's this spot here where Elon is. I sat in the back seat when this happened. Here's Elon doing it alone, and they launch through this spot. They did this again and again with multiple cars, again and again. They did the lap. They come back. They would drop us off. They would go do another lap. They did it again and again and again, and these cars did not get overheated. They just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. So whatever they did there really made a big difference. Related to batteries, Elon reported on the stage that Plaid will add 187 miles of range in 15 minutes. As I understand it, the long-range Model S will add even more miles of range because it's the same basic battery pack. I don't believe there's a difference in the batteries between Plaid Model S and long-range Model S. I should have asked that question, I didn't, but I'm pretty confident of this. The long-range Model S has more range. And that time, 15 minutes, is how long it takes you to basically add 50% of charge if you go from 25 to 75, let's say. That's where the peak rate of charge is going to be, from about 25% charge to 75% charged. So long range has more range. So if it adds roughly half of the battery in roughly 15 minutes, that's close to 200 miles. I think it's a little less than 50%. So it's roughly 195 miles by my calculation in 15 minutes. So you're going to get a lot out of charging that vehicle in 15 minutes. And my impression is that's going to get faster over time. They're going to improve that over time. Elon talked on stage about going from 250 watts to 280 watts to 350 kilowatts at the superchargers. Don't forget the merch, the Elon stainless bottle shirts at elonbits.com. Please check that out. I want to before I forget, I already forgot, but before I forget, I want to thank the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden. I want to thank the Vasa Law Firm in Sweden and all my Patreon supporters. There's links to Patreon in the description below. Patreon supporters get early access to some videos, bonus content, and they get to submit questions for live streams and more. So I'm going to be doing a Patreon Q&A after I finish talking about Plaid. So let's get going again. Okay, I got a lot more for you. Tesla's biggest challenge. This is conversations with key people. Tesla's biggest challenge right now. There's a lot of challenges. There's supply chain issues. A lot of that stuff is short-term. The biggest long-term challenge for Tesla is hiring enough people for this fast-growing company that has really, really demanding needs. And in particular, getting great engineers. If you are an engineer and you want to work for Tesla and you're good at what you do, contact them. There's probably a job for you. Now, really, really particular. This was a great... I want to describe the context of the conversation. I didn't ask this question, but there was part of the conversation I was involved with. There were questions about what kind of engineers, what do you need? And there was this talk about mechanical engineers who work with large rotating machines. This is a special, special problem. It was described to me as a 10 to the 6th problem, 10 to the 6th power. So in a microchip world, engineers work on nanometer features on millimeter objects. And that's a 10 to the 6th difference, nanometer to millimeter. I actually had this wrong before, and I spoke with a friend who corrected me. I thought it was nanometer to micron. It's nanometer to millimeter. That's a 10 to the 6th problem. At least I think my friend was correct and I was wrong. Tesla, when they're doing this large rotating machines problem, like the rotor in the Plaid Model S, like the rotor in the engine, and also in battery manufacturing, they're using large rotating machines. They're dealing with micron level features on meter level objects. And that's a 10 to the 6th problem. And this is a challenge to find engineers who have experience and knowledge and talent in working with large rotating machines like that and achieving the issues at that 10 to the 6th jump from meters to microns. I'm not claiming I understood all of what I just said, but that's how I heard it. I think it makes sense. So if you are a mechanical engineer in particular, they want you. I think electrical engineers, I think there's a huge demand. I think chemical engineers, there's huge demand for all these kind of engineering at Tesla. Factory workers are tough, but that's not as much of a problem. They still need people, but that wasn't the big challenge. The big challenge is just engineers, 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 which tells me there's a long way to go. They are still working to make major improvements. Like, it's not like, okay, Plaid Model S is the fastest production car in history. We're done engineering, where everything's good. We're just going to make cars like this from now on. No, they're going to continue improving engineering. One of the things I can... This is not from the conversations. This is me getting something out of this. If you paid attention, Plaid Model S has this special rotor, carbon sleeved rotor. They're using carbon fiber to basically hold the rotor together as it spins up to 20,000 RPMs. Now for Model S, that's designed for, high performance, for incredible horsepower, being able to maintain that incredible horsepower all the way up to 200 miles per hour. Huge, huge jump in power with a drop in weight. That's why you're getting such radical acceleration. Standing quarter mile is like 9.2 seconds or something. It's crazy, crazy, crazy stuff. So what if you did the same thing with a smaller engine, a smaller motor? What if you took a smaller motor and maybe, I don't know, I have a feeling this carbon sleeve thing is really, really expensive, and that's why the price jump for Plaid is so big. One of the big reasons for the price jump in Plaid is just that motor is really expensive to make. And, then there's the question, can they find a way to make that motor for less money, or make a smaller version of that motor for less money, spin up to 200,000 to 20,000 RPMs with a smaller motor and get a lot more out of a lighter weight motor? Maybe, speculation on my part, probably wrong. Maybe that's something they're thinking about for future vehicles, is not so much for high performance, but for high efficiency. You can make a much smaller motor that produces a lot less power by spinning at that speed. Maybe that gets you somewhere. Reduces weight. Reducing weight is really, really important. Okay. Now here's a big one that surprised me, that showed me I was wrong about something. And those of you who love this topic are going to love that I was wrong about this. There was talk about V2G, vehicle to grid. using Tesla vehicles to power homes or to send energy back to the grid when the grid needs power. And I have been saying for at least a couple years now, it ain't happening. I've been consistent about it. I feel like every time it comes up on stage, it came up on Battery Day. I feel like Tesla's been consistent. We're not doing that. I think they might be doing it. I think V2G might be coming. I should say there's hope for it. In the US, there's this problem that I think a lot of people know about. The way the charge port is designed, there's some, I think it might be a regulatory issue in the United States. There's a key component that's missing that makes it hard to do V2G. But they could add another port, or they may go to inductive charging. Inductive charging is like the vehicle is sitting over something that there's a wireless electrical connection to charge the battery or discharge the battery. And then if they did inductive charging, that would be an easier way to allow vehicle to grid. So, no, I don't think they're doing it because Ford is doing it. I think, and I'm not sure they're doing it. I think it's something they're thinking about doing, or at least some people in Tesla are thinking about doing it. I don't think it's a good choice. I specifically raised this issue that a battery cycle is worth more running in a vehicle than it is feeding the grid. And someone I consider very, 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 very reliable and knowledgeable about Tesla did not think that was a significant issue. Seemed to think didn't say I was wrong, but had a very different opinion of me about that point. Very different opinion than me about that point. So, let's see. Range. I tweeted this. We all know Plaid Plus got dropped. It was a shock. Everyone was excited about Plaid Plus, was going to deliver 500 miles of range. And, the performance difference between Plaid and Plaid Plus. Oh, I should mention this really quick. I did a test ride in Plaid going 0 to 100 in about 5 seconds, 5 or 6 seconds. Everyday Astronaut, in his own video of it on his phone, we were looking at it together. I got to meet Everyday Astronaut Tim Dodd, kind of cool. On his phone, as he counted it, it was 5 seconds from 0 to 100. 5 seconds from 0 to 100. Okay? Or maybe it was 4. Maybe he had 4. I think he had 4 seconds. It was crazy. It was just absolutely crazy. Really, really fast. So I'm riding in this thing. We'll go 0 to 100. We go really hard around that curve. I think we were going 70 miles an hour around that curve. And it was quiet. It was quieter as I drove home from the airport. I have a Volkswagen Passat. For those who don't know, I don't have a Tesla yet. I'm driving a Volkswagen Passat home on Interstate 95, coming home from the airport yesterday. The ride in the Plaid going 0 to 100 in 4, 5, 6 seconds, doing that curve at 70 miles an hour, was quieter than going 70 miles an hour doing nothing special on I-95 in my Volkswagen Passat. It was super quiet, stunningly quiet. How amazing that was. Yes, I was smiling a lot during the event. Thank you for mentioning that. I had a great time. Oh, I don't think people know this, so sorry. I'll give you a little bit of background here. The Boring Company, I'm going to be talking about Boring Company later in this live stream. Boring Company has a thing called Vegas Loop in the Las Vegas Convention Center. And they had their first event, the World of Concrete. I got a press pass. I bought a ticket for $70 on Spirit Airlines to fly out there. Made my butt hurt. Spirit Airlines seats are fine on a 2-hour flight. They're not that great on a 5-hour flight. Bring a cushion if you go on a long flight in Spirit Airlines. I like Spirit Airlines, but bring a cushion. So I made this plan. I'm going to fly out to World of Concrete. I'm going to experience the boring tunnels. I got a lot of video on that. I'm going to be making a video specifically in more depth about that later. And then I'm like, okay, Plaid event is coming. I had reached out to Tesla to see if I could get into the Plaid event, and I was told maybe. And I didn't have a yes or a no. And I knew you were going to need a negative COVID test or vaccination. I haven't been vaccinated, so I got a negative. I didn't know I was getting in, but I paid $129 for a rapid COVID test so I could know I was negative and prove I was negative. Fly to Vegas, $30. I decided, what the heck? I'm going to fly up to go to Fremont. I flew up to Oakland again. $30. I'm saving money. I'm a cheap guy. In case you don't know, I'm cheap. I try to save money. Travel with my wife. We travel nice. I travel alone. I travel cheap and light. So Fly up to Oakland, $30. So $100 to get to Vegas, $70 to get to Vegas, $30 to get to Oakland. Only $100 so far. Stayed in hotels in Las Vegas again, cheap, whatever. It wasn't that bad actually. And I spend money where I spend money. My brother met me in Vegas, and we went out and did a couple things. We had a really nice sushi dinner, decent breakfast, whatever. So I get to Oakland, and I get on the BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit train, to go down to Fremont, and I'm on the train checking my email, and I got the email at 7:30 that morning, like an hour before the event, 12 hours before the event, that I got in. So I was stoked. Honestly, I cried. I'm not saying I cried a lot. I just cried a little bit. I was so excited because I had done everything. Like I got the rapid. I spent $129 on a rapid. I spent more on the rapid COVID test than I spent flying to Oakland. Right, from Florida to Vegas to Oakland, and I spent that money so that in the event they said yes, I'd be able to get in, and I got in. Right, and it would have been so stupid if I'd flown out there and couldn't get in because of the COVID test. So I got the COVID test. I did what I had to do to get in. So. So then I hung out for the day. I'll put this picture up. I'm live streamed. Some of you probably noticed I live streamed from Fremont, and after my live stream was over, Robert shows up. He drove over from somewhere else, Mountain View or something like that. Drove over, hung out with me for a little while, just out of the blue. Thank you, Robert, for showing up and chatting with me. Helped me pass the test. I had a lot of time to kill, and it was really great talking to him, listening to him, what's going on with him, why he likes Tesla, what he thinks about my positive things about my live streaming, my videos. Hung out with a bunch of people. I don't have photos of everything. Had dinner with Frank, is the one closest to me. Joe, Frank is Frank and Beans. Joe is San Joaquin Valley, Tesla. John is in the chat, or at least was in the chat. He's Tesla, Buffalo Tesla. And Coding Mark, Frank and Coding Mark I encounter all the time on Twitter. So a bunch of great people. We had a nice dinner. This was a pretty cool Mexican place. I shouldn't have eaten dinner. I didn't want to eat dinner. They had food at the event. Whatever, I did that. A couple other things from the event. This is Ryan from Kilowatts, who's a really big time, in my opinion, a big time player in the Tesla Twitter, Tesla YouTube community. That's just him sitting in a Model X that was available for display. And this is me hanging out with Kristen Netton, K10. She's in Third Row Tesla podcast. Or was in Third Row Tesla podcast, which seems to be defunct. Interviewed Elon twice. Really nice person. Met so many great people. I'm going to go through the list of people I met later. I'll probably pull up those pictures again. So, getting back to inside details. Sorry, I just had to explain that bit. Range. I think a lot of people are upset that they dropped Plaid Plus and they said, well, we don't need more than 400 miles of range. I had a fairly in-depth conversation about this. That Tesla has a lot of data. I got a lot of pushback from this on Twitter. I've seen a lot of people complaining about this on Twitter. You have your impression that, no, I really need 500 miles of range. I really, really need, or I really, really want, but there's a really big difference between want and need. The data shows Tesla. They have tons and tons of data. They have way more data than anybody else about how people use their cars. It is very rare that someone needs more than 400 miles of range. Want is different than need. The fact that you think you need or that you want more than 400 miles of range does not mean you need it. What you perceive as need is probably not need. The data is compelling. It is very, very rare that people need more than 400 miles of range. When you add in the heat pump that's going to improve range in the winter, Elon said it. There's one of these things like when Elon says something, okay, when the team says it, I'm saying the team is saying it. No, we've looked at the data. 400 miles of range is enough. The chase for 500 miles of range is over. And there's a problem to get 500 miles of range, they could do it, right? They just put more batteries in. They could get there, but that's more weight. One of the key goals is to minimize weight, which maximizes efficiency, and it maximizes the number of vehicles you can make because you have more batteries available because you didn't cram them into a vehicle. You go down the road, way down the road, right? 3-4 years from now, battery efficient, the batteries are much better. Sure, then maybe we'll see 500 miles of range. This is not part of the conversation. The conversation was, 400 miles is enough. We don't need to worry about that. And you know, the BMW M5 only has 340 miles of range in a gasoline car. There's plenty of gasoline cars that don't have 400 miles of range. So it's just not critical for what they see in their data. That's it. That's big. Okay. Future cyber vehicles. I talked to somebody who knows a lot about Cybertruck. A lot about Cybertruck. My big question, which I've heard other people talking about, is there potential for there to be other cyber-based vehicles? And generally speaking, the answer was it's conceivable, but there's nothing coming. There's nothing immediate, nothing happening with I'm talking about the folded steel exoskeleton design, the manufacturing. The thing is, it's really, really appropriate for the truck because a truck needs to be tough, and having this bulletproof truck that you can bang something into it and it won't you won't have to worry about dents. Just not important about doing that for other vehicles. I asked in particular, isn't it less cost to make it? And the answer was it isn't necessarily lower cost to make the Cybertruck design. It's different. It's just a different kind of manufacturing. There may be some cost advantages. It's not that overwhelming. It's cool. Only a couple people in the company really got what Cybertruck was about before they had Cybertruck reveal. And it hit, and it's happening. Okay. I didn't get any hint, like people are worried Cybertruck's not happening. Cybertruck's happening. It's coming. Now, I should say on the range thing, this didn't come up in conversation, but I believe it's pretty obvious that if you're doing heavy-duty towing, that Cybertruck will be doing, then range matters more. So I would guess that Tri-Motor Cybertruck still will have 500 miles of range or close to it. Possible it's going to be less than 500. Just saying possible. But I think that's still going to have 500 miles range because the idea of Tri-Motor Cybertruck is to be able to do towing, and that's when it matters a lot more. We'll see. I don't know one way or the other. Just not sure. I wanted to hit back on a point I made earlier. There's this key part that Model S is sharing with Model 3 and Y. And I was told they make 30,000 of these parts of this part a week. I think it was the heat pump, but I'm not sure. Might have been the heat pump, might have been something related to the heat pump. They make 30,000 of this part a week. 30,000 times 50 is 1.5 million a year. It's really 52, so 1.6 million a year. Almost 1.6 million a year. I think I got my numbers right. That's like 1.5 million vehicles a year. Well, they only made 500,000 vehicles last year. They only expect to make maybe 800. We only expect to make maybe 800 or 900,000 this year. That was. I got a very, very non-answer. Not even going to talk about it. How many vehicles you're going to make this year? Nothing. But I was sort of bouncing off this thing that, well, if you're going to make 800, 900,000 vehicles this year, and you're going to get more than double the batteries for next year. Sounds like you're going to hit 2 million next year. Just stone cold equivalent of no comment without saying no comment. I would say almost a knowing smile, but I don't know. I still think they're going to hit 2 million vehicles. I don't think they're going to hit 1 million vehicles this year, though it's possible. I think they're going to hit 2 million vehicles next year. But that was sort of one of those things where I was having the conversation and I wasn't getting anything. Okay. Now, I asked about my... Oh, where is that? I got to switch. Wait. Sorry. Let me find my image. There it is. Okay. I asked about my single passenger vehicle idea, which I drew this last night. I asked about this idea. My impression, a single passenger vehicle would be much more efficient than a 4-passenger vehicle or a 2-passenger vehicle. You can really save weight. You can really save a lot of things. You can make it a lot more efficient. This is my hack idea for a single passenger vehicle. Speaking with somebody who knows a lot about Tesla, I don't think that's coming. Not from Tesla anyway. My impression was that there's a huge amount of gain for if the vehicle costs a lot less to manufacture, you amortize that over 1 million miles, you reduce costs a lot, less energy to make it run, lower cost to replace tires if they're smaller tires, a lot of things like that. Largely the answer to that was no. But there was an acknowledgement of one thing I've said about the single passenger vehicles. If you get them down to 3 feet or narrower, You increase road capacity because you've decreased the width. If the road normally handles 6-foot wide cars, which is roughly how wide cars are, they're 6 foot to 6.5, maybe 7 feet wide. I think Cybertruck is around, it's nearly 7 feet wide. Pickup trucks, Ford F-150, whatever, they're close to 7 feet wide. Get it down to 3 feet, you're like half roughly the width of a regular car. You can fit 2 of them in a lane. You could double the road capacity. That's pretty cool. So, anyway, I'll just mention to you, I'm really excited about this idea. If Tesla's not going to do it, maybe I can do it. I know that sounds crazy. I got some other things on my plate first. I shouldn't be thinking about this, but if anybody knows engineers in South Florida who think this is a cool idea and they want to talk to me, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, put them in touch with me. I want to talk to them. Just the idea. We're only at the idea stage. I have some ideas about how to make it happen, but I got to talk to some engineers first to see if I'm not crazy. Well, let's be clear. I am crazy. I talked to my friend Alex last night about it. We both agreed I'm crazy, but maybe it's still worth doing even though I'm crazy. So I wanted to mention just more about the event, all the people that I met. I mentioned Robert before. I mentioned the dinner group before. I mentioned Ryan. I mentioned K10. Oh, thank you, Kathy K. COVID vax is free. Could have seen. Kathy, we're not going to have a COVID conversation in this live stream. I have some very strong opinions about COVID that you're probably not going to agree with. And when I have those conversations, it tends to make people hate me or love me, depending on where they're coming from. So we're not talking about COVID. Okay, so I met K10 right here at K10. Thank you so much for chatting with me. K10, taking a picture with me. I'm a huge fan. I met Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. I have a picture for you, but Google Everyday Astronaut. He has a huge YouTube channel. He covers SpaceX. I had a conversation with him. Oh, I didn't think about this. This isn't in the outline. Conversation with Tim Dodd. First of all, I would say this, because I'm a huge, like, of all the people I'm going to mention, probably Tim Dodd is one of the people I'm the biggest fan of. If you don't watch his channel, watch Everyday Astronaut. Fantastic. He's that guy. You know, there's people who are, I think I'm the guy you see here. There are people who do things on YouTube or TV or whatever, and they end up not being themselves in front of the camera. The guy you see in front of the camera in Everyday Astronaut is the guy I talk to. That's just who he is. He's just that enthusiastic, happy, nerdish. You know, we're all nerds. Like, this was a total nerd session, right? Just a blast. What a wonderful guy. Really enjoyed meeting him. Really enjoyed talking. I was talking to him about stretching the tanks. There's this thing Elon said with Starship about stretching the tanks. You reduce the mass of the payload, you increase the mass of the fuel, and you can get a little bit more delta V, and allows you to go farther, deeper, whatever. Because I have a T-shirt. If you check the, not this T-shirt, if you check elonbits.com, I have a T-shirt with different Starship ideas. And I think Tim Dodd doesn't think it goes as far as I think. And he had this really interesting idea about you put Starship in a particular orbit before you refuel it. So it's close to the edge of breaking free of Earth's gravity well. And by refueling it at that orbit, you're giving it the most potential, the most useful delta V. Delta V is the ability to change in velocity, the ability to get further out where you want to go. Massive oversimplification. I'm probably even saying it wrong. But anyway, great conversation with Tim Dodd. That was so awesome. I met Martin Viecha from Tesla. Martin Viecha is the guy on the investor calls who introduces the call, who reads the questions from the say.com, or, you know, invites the great guy. Really love talking. I only talked to him briefly. Really love talking to him. Talked to Drew Baglino, who is the guy who was at Battery Day with Elon Musk. Talked to Franz von Holzhausen, who's the guy who designed Cybertruck. The guy who walked out on stage earlier. Do I have Franz? I have Franz here. This is Franz. I met him. This guy's like, I love this guy, and I got to meet him and chat with him briefly. Just a great conversation with those guys. I met Raphael, who's known as Teslatino on Twitter. He lives like 45 minutes from me in South Florida. We've talked about getting together and meeting somewhere. First time we meet in person's in California. Just crazy. I met Robert. I mentioned Robert before. I met Ryan. I mentioned Ryan before. I met Eli. I think it's Eli Barton from Starman. All these people, like, everyone was great. Everyone was great. I mentioned Frank and Joe. Joe is there's Frank, then there's Joe. Joe gave me and John a ride over to the event from where we had dinner. He's a longtime Tesla Model S owner, San Joaquin Valley Tesla Club. Great group of guys there. Frank, Joe, John, and Mark, that was. I met a number of Tesla employees. I met Tesla Raj, R-A-J. Kim Paquette, who does great FSD beta videos. She's big on Twitter. I met Jonna Kreider, who writes for, I think it's Clean Technica. She also loved the merch, the swag, the blanket. She and I were both tweeting about how great the blanket was. That's so silly. So just an absolute blast. Really, really enjoyed this. It was a wonderful event. I am hoping to go back for the shareholders meeting in September. Whatever the next event's going to be, I'm hoping to go back. I think I got a good shot of getting to go back. Really want to thank the Tesla team. I think the Tesla team did a great job and everything. All right, so that was what I wanted to talk about with Plaid. I'm going to take Patreon questions now. I'm going to take one or two Patreon questions now. Then we're going to move on to the Boring Company experience, which I'm going to do more briefly, and I'm going to do a full edited video on the Boring Company experience, hopefully this week. So that means we go here to Patreon Q&A. Mark asked this question: will the new motor benefit other models? I think this is a reference to the Plaid motor that has the carbon sleeve rotor in it. Has this massive, first of all, there's 3 of them, massive horsepower. I don't know if the front and rears are the same. I think they are. Oh, I wanted to show this really quick. I don't think I showed this before. Let me show this really quick. This was one of the things, there were a whole bunch of things that they showed at the event. This is basically the shell of Plaid Model S. That's, I guess, the 2 rear motors. And then you're just seeing the inside and how simple it is. How straight, I'm just going to let you look at it for a second while you're going to drink of water here. So this is basically I don't know if this is called body on white. I'm not sure that's the right term for it. It probably isn't the right term, especially not with the motors in it. But this is the basic, there's the front motor. Just give you an impression of what the vehicle, you can see these 2 things that are sticking out. That's what absorbs the crash, if there's a crash. Just, beautiful vehicle. Really cool to see this. I meant to show this to you guys earlier. Okay, sorry, let's go back to Patreon Q&A. So will the new motor benefit other models? As far as I know for right now, maybe it'll be in Roadster. That would make sense to me that this carbon sleeve rotor would be in Roadster. I think, and as I mentioned this earlier, I think there's a chance that we will see that design of using this car, because they're still working on large spinning objects. That's still a huge engineering challenge. So they want to do more with large spinning machinery, large rotating machinery. So is it possible that this design of achieving very high RPMs using a carbon sleeve rotor, is that something that could be extended to other vehicles? I didn't hear anything about it. I didn't ask about it. It makes sense to me that it might. Larger HVAC, I'm not sure what that question was about. And then the new battery pack, what I can tell about my impression of the new battery pack, and I wish they'd given more details, is they removed that front section. They basically were able to get rid of a lot of batteries and save a lot of weight in a lot of different ways in the battery pack. But they didn't provide a lot of detail, and I didn't really ask for more detail about that. So, all right, let's see. That's Patreon Q&A. Let me move on to, we're going to come back to more Q&A later in the live stream. Let me go on to the Boring Company. So I got to ride in the Boring Loop. So this is where the Boring Loop, this is a car, some of this is sped up, by the way. This part I think is not sped up. Maybe this is a little sped up. That's just vehicles coming out of the tunnel. Then yeah, most clips are sped up. This is double speed. So they're really not going this fast going down to the tunnel. This is and it's going to go back to normal speed in a second.
It's a 1.5 mile loop.
The far end.
All right. So do a loop.
Yes, please.
Come back here. All right, full loop and back.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you.
You bet.
You might see me a couple times today.
You might see me a couple times today. I didn't go on that many rides. So I think this might be normal speed, or maybe I'll speed it up at some point. But this is the West Station. You can actually see there's a big hotel in the background. You can see World of Concrete listed on the sign there. This is the World of Concrete event. And it's about to go dive. Okay, now we sped it up a little bit. So it's about to dive down in the tunnel. We're going to resume normal speed. That's the convention center in the background there. And it dives down into the tunnel. I occasionally have volume on in this video. I turned most of it off.
For the other station. That's too bad.
So can I ask you, do you get any training for using any self-driving features, or is that not part of it yet?
That's not part of it yet.
Now we're going to speed up. This is the tunnel. This is 4x speed. So we approach about 40 miles an hour, you can see there. And then when you get to the stations, they slow down to about 6 to 8 miles an hour in the stations. We're going to drive through the station, but you can see, I guess he gets up to around 10 miles an hour as we're going through the station. We're going to come back to that in a second.
If you look close at the walls, you can see there are segments of concrete.
Yeah, I know,
Oh, we get the colors. I thought it was supposed to be white during the conventions.
My impression was that the tunnels are only white lit during the conventions, and they only use the colors for special events, but maybe because it's the first time they use the colors. So pretty cool. Now, so that that was at Central Station before, and now we're going to come up to South Station. So we come out of the tunnel here. I think we're going to go to I think we're still at 2x speed here. Just to give you a sense, this is South Station. And I'm not going to show it in this video, but right near here is where the vehicles go in and out of the system, and they go to a parking lot. If you look in the background there, there's a parking lot way back there. That's where the vehicles go in and out. And if you go right of that barrier, you go out to the gate to get out. So go back in the tunnel. I don't believe anyone has hit a wall. There's a human behavior problem. I should talk about the human behavior problem, where this is getting close to over. We're going that's again 4x speed. We're not really going that as fast as it looks. I didn't want this portion of the video to take too long. So, and I did use image stabilization to try to make the video not quite as jumpy. It looks like it didn't work that well. We're gonna park here. I'm gonna get out.
Alright, there's an escalator behind us. On your door handle is an open door button. You just press it and push the door out.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And then this is Central Station. And you head on out, and we're gonna go up the escalator. Looked around a little bit. And you know, there's a lot of details I could go into. Like I said, I'm going to make a video about this. One of the striking things in the conversations I had and what I saw was one of the biggest problems with the Boring Company system. I'm going to say a lot more about Boring Company system in a minute, but one of the biggest problems is human behavior. Humans don't make good choices. So there are people who are like wandering around, like there's areas you're clearly supposed to walk and areas you're clearly not supposed to walk. You're not supposed to walk in the area where the cars go. You're supposed to walk in the area where people go. And people are walking right on. Apparently one guy actually started walking down one of the tunnels. Not while I was there. At some point, maybe it was the previous day, somebody tried to walk down one of the tunnels. No, that's not what it's for. Come on. So it's, I think they're still learning, how do we design this system to make sure we account for humans behaving badly. But and I should mention, I had first of all, my brother met me in Vegas. We hung out. We did the convention together. We had breakfast before we did the convention. We went to this great sushi place called Sushi Joe's near UNLV. Absolutely, that was amazing. And reasonably priced. We spent over $100, but that's because we drank too much and had dessert or whatever. We don't normally drink much, but you could eat, for the high quality of sushi they had, you can eat at a reasonable price if you don't buy a big bottle of sake and beer and big desserts and order more sushi than you should. So, also went to World of Concrete. I'm going to include that in that video. There was some really interesting. Most of World of Concrete was not what I was looking for, but I did find some stuff I was looking for, using AI to improve how you do concrete. preserving concrete so you don't have to do more concrete. So when there's CO2 emissions from producing concrete, if you can make the concrete last longer, then you don't have to do as much concrete. So it's almost like, forget about all the technology. If you just made your concrete last twice as long in the first place, then you wouldn't have to do concrete twice as much, and that would save a lot on CO2 there. There's a lot, a lot of great concepts in there. And there was this really cool, should have gotten a picture of this. There's this cool company that does electric wheelbarrows for concrete. And it's basically like an EV for a wheelbarrow to carry like 1,000 pounds of concrete or cement or whatever. That was pretty cool. I want to say the biggest impression overall of the Boring Company system. So on this trip, I rode planes. I drove my own car to the airport, took a plane to Vegas, got a Lyft ride to my hotel. We got a Lyft ride from breakfast to the convention center. I took an Uber back to the airport, rode a bus. I can't remember where I rode a bus somewhere. I rode the Bay Area Rapid Transit, which is like a train. From the Fremont BART station, I took a bus to this mall where we all got together, this Pacific Commons shopping center. There's this huge contrast between the experience of riding the Vegas Loop, riding a Boring Company loop system, and taking Ubers, Lyfts, buses, and trains. The Boring Company loop system wins on safety. It wins on convenience. It wins on comfort. It wins on speed. It wins on cost to the rider. It is spectacular. People ask, what was it like? Well, the simple experience was I sat in a car that rode through a tunnel. Okay? It wasn't that big of a deal. Okay? If you're just thinking, well, I rode in a car through a tunnel, we went 40 miles an hour, it's kind of cool to go down into a tunnel, right? But I've been in tunnels before. I've been in cars in tunnels before. That's not it. It's not an amusement park ride. Riding in the Plaid, that's like an amusement. That's more acceleration than I think I've ever experienced in my life. The Plaid going 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Holy, that's fast. And I've driven a Model 3 Performance, which is like, I don't know, 3.1 or 3.5 seconds 0 to 60. This is a lot faster, and it's just like, I sat back actually, holding the door, whatever. But the key thing about Boring Company and this loop system is this is going to get bigger. And anywhere this goes, it's going to be better than Uber, Lyft, driving your own car, taking a bus, taking a train. Over time, this is going to get better and better. They just got started. It's quiet. And like with Uber and Lyft, I had a problem with Lyft. Which, if you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted about it. I was going to the airport and I go on my app and there's like a wait and save. And instead of a car picking up in 5 minutes, you agree to wait up to 25 minutes for your ride. I wasn't in a hurry to get to the airport. So I did wait and save, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting. And this was still going to be like $5 a mile. There's only 2 miles from my hotel to the airport. It wasn't like this was cheap. It was just a little bit cheaper, and I had time to kill, so okay. And it never came. And I had to take an Uber, which was fine. The Uber ride was fine. The Uber guy came reasonably quickly, whatever. I got to my flight on time. It wasn't close. I made it. The fact that I missed that this, all of a sudden I was now in a hurry. With the Boring Company system, you walk down to a station, or you walk to a station, and there's usually a car pulling up, and somebody's getting out, and you hop in. And now, the way the system is now, it's just you show the badge. Well, this isn't the concrete, but you show a badge like this, right? It was actually on my phone, the badge. The way it's going to be is you're going to have an app, and you're going to request a ride, and when the ride comes up, your phone's going to tell you it's this ride, and it's not going to open the door unless you're the one who's supposed to be in it, unless you have the phone that's triggered for that ride. So that is going to be very reliable, and I think vehicles are going to show up a lot quicker, and they're going to get you there a lot quicker, and they don't have to stop. And this is another big thing, like you saw on that ride that I showed you. Great, we got thunder now. We didn't stop at the center station. We went 10 miles an hour through that station. Now, if you're on a bus or you're on a train, it stops typically, unless you're on an express, it stops at every station. So the Vegas system is going to have 46 stations over a 30-mile span. Figure there's 20 stations between you and where you are and where you want to go. 20 stops adds like 20 minutes to your trip. If you don't stop and you just slow down at 10 miles an hour for a few seconds, maybe it takes 1 minute out of your trip. So you get where you're going a lot faster. You get where you're going a lot more comfortable. You're not sitting with a whole bunch of people. There's no homeless guy across the. I'm sorry, I've experienced the New York City subway a lot. I heard people complaining about BART a lot. Sorry, I mean, I have a friend who's homeless, a pro bono client who's homeless, whatever. But you don't necessarily want to be next to a smelly guy on your ride. This is going to only have people who are supposed to be there. So it's going to be better than buses. It's going to be better than trains. It's going to be far less expensive than Uber and Lyft. It's going to get you where you want to go fast. The potential for this to expand, I've said this before. I'm like more convinced of it now. Boring Company is going to be this monster huge system. Monster huge system. Every city should have this. My ballpark, Vegas will ultimately have 100 miles of tunnel in their loop system. There's 1,000 cities like Vegas. That's 100,000 miles of systems like this. Boring Company has 2 miles now. The potential for growth of the Boring Company is crazy, crazy. If you're interested in that, click on the link in the description for the investor email. There's nothing planned. There's nothing planned in the near future. Gonna wait a little bit. I was heading close to something, decided to pause. But I think Boring Company it's not the company I'm most excited about. I'm more excited about SpaceX and Neuralink for other reasons, because I think they advance humanity more in another way. But if you want to get around on this rock, this Earth, better, faster, cheaper, more comfortable, where you want to go, all of that, safer, Boring Company loop system is going to take over transportation for a large chunk of the world. It's going to be amazing. Cleaner. I didn't mention cleaner. There's no pollution. Just absolutely stunning how amazing that was. Sorry, 1 second. This is what interrupted our live stream. This is Charlotte the Wonder Puppy. She doesn't really want to be up here. All right. Just wants to hang. So, I hope that's okay. So, as the Vegas loop expands, it's going to become more, once it hits, as it expands and it reaches other destinations, it's going to become more obvious how amazing this is. When it gets to the airport, and it is in the plans to go to the airport. When it gets to the airport, that's it. It's going to be so blindingly obvious that this is the future, that you're going to start seeing this happen. And people go to Vegas. People are going to go to Vegas and say, why the hell don't we have this in my city? And government officials are going to go to Vegas and say, my commute would be a lot shorter if we had this. There's so many reasons. The puppy needs a hairbrush? What are you talking about? You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're so beautiful. Once people start flying into Vegas and taking the loop system, and then they get home and they take an Uber or a Lyft or a bus, or they have to go to some parking lot, they have to wait take a shuttle to a parking lot, or, all of a sudden it's like, wait, I just go down to the system and hop on and it takes me where I want to go, and it's fast and convenient and comfortable and cheap. It's over. It's over. Boring Company it's going to take over the world. I know not everyone sees it. People are excited about SpaceX. I'm excited about SpaceX. People are excited about Neuralink. All this stuff is great. I think SpaceX and Neuralink are ultimately more important, but it is a no-brainer that Boring Company, we've had tunnels for 100 years. We know they work. We get all these questions. Well, what about earthquakes? And we've had tunnels during earthquakes before. They do fine. What about flooding? The Netherlands has tunnels. The Netherlands is like 26 feet below sea level, and they have tunnels. Tunnels work everywhere. Almost everywhere. It's fantastic. Thank you, Kevin, for saying hello. So, I don't have more subscribers. It's not the subscribers, it's the views. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying with me. Please support the channel. Let's talk about that for a second. Please support the channel on Patreon. Why does this keep happening? What am I doing here? Please support the channel on Patreon. Thanks to the Vasa Law Firm again for supporting this channel. Patreon supporters get early access to some videos. They get bonus content. They get to submit questions for live streams. Like we're about to do some more Patreon questions right now. And there's the link to Patreon in the description below. Link to merch. Elon Be Less Wrong. A water bottle. So, did that. All right. So Lee asked this question. Oh, this is about Sandy Monroe. There was a video Q&A on Sandy Monroe's channel. Somebody asked about the inability to do side loading on Cybertruck, and he said Cybertruck is not for regular contractors, and it's more like an SUV. He thinks the F-150 Lightning is the right choice for contractors. Surprising to hear this from him. Do I have any thoughts on his take, and if indeed Tesla can do something to make the side loadable? So, Sandy knows more about this than I do. I think it depends on the kind of work that you do. I think there are contractors. Thank you, Klaus, for joining the channel. Did I try to arrange an interview with Elon? No. I didn't even try. That's not going to happen. So I have reasonable expectations. I don't see that happening anytime soon. So I think there's different kinds of contractors who do different kinds of things. So there are contractors. If you're a contractor, you work from the back of the truck, then Cybertruck's going to be just as good, if not better. Don't forget that Cybertruck has an air suspension, so it'll be able to lower the vehicle about 4 inches from ride height, maybe more than that, and that will make it easier to access over the side. If you understand the design of Cybertruck, it's a triangle, and getting into this part of the truck from the side might be hard. Lowering 4 inches might not be enough to make a huge difference. So in certain circumstances, sure, an F-150 might be better for that kind of contractor. I'm not sure how much room there is in the front, Chris, for that. So I don't think that Tesla needs to do anything about that. The goal for Cybertruck that I'm aware of is they're going to hope to produce 250,000 to 300,000 a year. That's a fairly small volume for pickup trucks. F-150 is like 1 million a year. So unless, if there's, I suppose if there was more demand and that became a huge issue, then they could do it, but I don't think they're going to bother doing it. Damien asked for longer boring tunnels. It looks like there could be a little bit of a claustrophobic problem, or maybe even motion sickness looking out the windows. Did I hear of anyone at Las Vegas Tunnel having these problems? No. It did not feel claustrophobic at all. I've heard other people talk about that they thought it would feel claustrophobic. It does not feel claustrophobic, not at all. I don't think this is a problem in any way, shape, or form. So I would not worry about that one bit. Let's see. And then Damien brought this up. Well, this is my single passenger vehicle idea, which I fleshed out a little bit more. He said, I had an idea about having an enclosed Tesla EV without windows, but a complete 360-degree bubble interior surround and visual display so as not to feel closed in. The big idea here is to make manufacturing simpler by not including glass, not including windows, not including windshields, not including side doors. So that if you see this, the idea is it's just a shell. There's just a plastic or metal shell around the vehicle, and the hatchback is here. There's a hatchback there. That opens for you to get in and out. You sit facing the rear. Makes the manufacturing much, much easier, much, much less expensive, and means the thing weighs a lot less, which contributes to efficiency. Then this is a more thought out answer to this idea than I had before. So a lot of reasons why this is a potentially good idea. What? You want to come back on my lap? No? Come here. We're going to do this with Puppy. We're going to do this with Puppy because I'm not sure what's going on, but she's not happy about something. I wonder if there's thunder and she's scared of the thunder. This is why I need to finish Thunderbox. Thunder Home. I've been training her to go into Thunder Homes, which is quiet when there's thunder. So, I think this was Damien asked, do I think this idea would be good for specialized or special prepared Tesla EVs for taking passengers through boring tunnels? Yes, absolutely. That kind of relates back to that question about claustrophobic. So the idea is on the inside of the hatchback, you're sitting here, and the hatchback is here, and you just have a big LCD screen. You have a big LCD screen in front of you, and if you want to look outside, you want to look forward, you turn on the forward camera. If you want to look behind you, you turn on the rear camera. If you want to watch a video game, do a video game, you do a video game. You want to watch a movie, you watch a movie. The dog's name is Charlotte. This is Charlotte the Wonder Puppy, by the way. They said to me, she is 7 years old. think she's 7 years old. So, so yeah, I think that what, Damien's point, that I think this concept would be really good for boring tunnels. And the thing is, this design that I've come up with, I don't think this is particularly crash worthy. I don't think you'd want this on a road with human drivers and 5,000-pound pickups. So, boring tunnels would be the perfect use for this. And this goes along with that conversation I had that it would double road capacity. If you use these vehicles, they could run too wide in the tunnels, right? Because they're 3 feet wide or 2.5 feet wide, and the road surface is maybe 10 feet wide. They'd run a lot better. You can't squeeze 2 regular vehicles in the tunnels, but you might be able to do this. So, so I think it's a really, I think probably one of the strongest potentials for these vehicles is in boring company loop systems. Hyper efficient, low cost. Most trips are 1 passenger, so that would make a lot of sense. Ken says, and this is a good question I wanted to talk about. Ken says, I think lithium iron phosphate batteries will be more and more important to Tesla over time, energy and low-end cars. Have I heard of any other suppliers to Tesla for lithium iron phosphate cells other than CATL? Yes, I heard recently that Tesla signed a contract with another lithium iron phosphate battery supplier. Sounded like it was a small number of cells, but it sounds like they are working on it. And I should say, CATL is scaling up production of lithium iron phosphate massively. Massive increase in that, so it's coming. David asks, when do I foresee the next batch of factories to begin groundbreaking? Where do I foresee them being situated? I have a video on my channel about where the next gigafactories might be, but I think they're going to finish Berlin and Austin, or sorry, they're going to make a lot of progress on Berlin and Austin. They're not going to be quite finished, but once they make enough progress for Berlin and Austin, they're running well. That's when I think they go to the next generation of gigafactory. So the next gigafactories won't be Berlin and Austin type gigafactories. This is not anything I learned from anybody at the event. This is my gut feel based on Elon's conversation with Sandy Munro, and the realities of running a business may get in the way of this. This is where I think Elon wants to go. Katie, I don't know the answer to your question about mechanics. I don't know the answer to that. So I think they're going to build the next generation gigafactory, which is going to produce that next generation vehicle, the 2023 Compact. And I think they're going to find ways of optimizing things, like maybe they do this high RPM engine with a carbon sleeve rotor that weighs a lot less. Maybe, or maybe that's too costly and they don't do that. Maybe they do single piece castings. I would say, given that my idea about no windows and, just a rear door, I heard Sandy Munro didn't like that idea either. My guess is they're not doing that. They're going to come up with some crazy innovations that nobody thought of the carbon sleeve rotor, right? That's the kind of thing that they pull out that you're like, oh, okay. So when they do that next generation vehicle and the next generation gigafactory, there's going to be a bunch of innovations that we're not aware of. It's kind of like battery day, and that's going to make things a lot better. Misty Pike, Tesla will not be partnering for Lucid Motors. Oh, you're making fun of it. Okay, thank you. I didn't get that. Okay, so so where do I see the next generation gigafactories going? I think very likely one in Austin, Texas, very likely one in Shanghai or somewhere else in China, very likely one in Berlin or somewhere else in Europe if they decide Berlin is too difficult a place to do business, but I think they like Berlin. I think that point about recruiting engineers being so difficult, you want to locate your factories in places where engineers want to be. So you got to find cities that people really like to be. Maybe London or maybe near London. I don't know how much people want to be in London, especially after the way things have gone in the last year or so. Luis, I did meet Gary Black. We talked briefly. It was a pleasant conversation. People keep asking me about Gary Black. Yes, I met him. Yes, we talked briefly. We did not fight. Okay, this is another question from David. For the quote Model 2, which we know is not the right name for it, he said the basic framework will have the same castings, electronics, camera, and safety features. I believe, and David seems to believe, that the 2023 vehicle will have a lot of commonality in certain ways that it's made, and then there will be regional body styles or regional versions. So he said, let's assume the U.S. version will be targeted to be a $25,000 model. Doesn't that mean that other car markets? That doesn't mean other car markets will have the same price target. So an Indian version could be a lot less money, And he says India model will use lithium iron phosphate batteries. The vehicle that was targeted for the US was also targeted to use lithium iron phosphate batteries. So that's not a cost saving. Built with less expensive labor, locally less expensive materials. So maybe they would be able to build that $25,000 vehicle in India for $15,000, or sell it for $25,000 in the US, sell it for $15,000 in India. Doesn't that create more potential for an Indian factory? Want to come down? Oh, okay, good. You want to go out? What do you want? Even me. You got tired of me. Charlotte the Wonder Puppy has left the room. So, basically, this is David. David made a big pitch for a gigafactory in India. So I haven't changed my mind about the fact that it's not clear that there's enough of a market for Tesla vehicles. There aren't enough people with enough money to buy Tesla vehicles in India. Even if you get them down to $15,000, getting them down to $15,000, maybe that's starting to get to reasonable, and maybe you have a big enough market for it. And I think the same thing with China, that, you know, the China version, that I believe that the cost of making the China Model 3 is less than the cost of making the Fremont Model 3. So very possible that there's some potential for something in India. I'm not convinced. I think that there's a lot of good reasons to go to India, and there's a lot of reasons not to. We'll see. There are some really highly placed people in Tesla who have India connections, so there's a lot of potential for it. Oh, Terry says, next time you plug the shirt, tell us the size you're wearing. I wear extra large because I'm a fat old man. Most of my shirts are extra large. I do occasionally wear a large. I can look okay in a large when I lose a few pounds. So, let me address Corey's question. Did I go to any of the Plaid event after parties? I saw one mentioned on Twitter. I went to a pre-party at Pacific Commons Shopping Center, and I went to an after party at a hotel with a lot of the people I already mentioned. So yeah, I did go to an after party. I didn't go to an after party with Elon. There were some Tesla people sort of arguably at this after party. More like a lot of the people in the Tesla community, the Tesla Twitter, Tesla YouTube community that were there. Active789, thank you for your support. So happy for you that the Tesla community's opened up and let you into the inner circle. I don't know if I'm quite the inner circle, but maybe I'm a little closer. I wasn't really worried about that. I was just very happy to meet people that I've engaged with. I've talked, you know, Omar Kazi has been on my live stream before. K10 has been on my live stream before. I feel like these people had already let me in. It was just nice to meet. Oh, Manic Marge. I met Manic Marge. She picked up a Model S. I had no idea what she looked like. Like I think I only know her from Clubhouse, or maybe on Twitter, but I didn't really have any picture of what she looked like. I had no idea. Like, oh, that's Manic Marge. Okay, just Marge. We just called her Marge. We didn't call her Manic Marge. She's Manic Marge on Twitter, I think. I'm 6 foot tall and 220 pounds. Terry. I'd like to say 215, but I'm 6 foot tall, 220 pounds. I should be 6 foot tall and 200 pounds. When I weigh 200 pounds, I can wear a large. Maybe 205, 210, I can wear a large. Okay, so let's see. Another David asked, we need to find out how Boring Company is planning on increasing the speed at which they build tunnels. This is core to their business model, 10x the tunneling speed to build more tunnels faster. We know the answer to that. Number one, they've already achieved a lot of this with reducing the diameter of the tunnel. Electric over diesel means you're not polluting the tunnel, so it's easier to work that way. Building the tunnel boring machine so that it installs the segments on the walls. Do I have that image? I think I have that image. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can find that image. There we go. Okay, this is the ring from the tunnel. What a ring of the tunnel looks like. This is this is a marker at the West Station, but you can see this line right here, this horizontal line. That horizontal line, there's segments of concrete that go together to form a ring, and that's what reinforces the tunnel walls. And as they bore a hole through the ground, and they put these rings as they go through, and that's what shores up the walls to the tunnel. Now, this tunnel was bored with Godot, which is their original tunnel boring machine. They're working on Proof Rock. My understanding is that Proof Rock is going to be installing concrete segments as it goes. If you have to back out the tunnel boring machine and then come in and put in the tunnel segments, it slows down your boring. The more the more hours a day you can bore, the more speed you're going to get in terms of miles per day or miles per week or whatever it's going to be. So it's a lot of little things like that, increasing the power that goes to the tunnel boring machine so you can get more rock or dirt or whatever it is you're trying to spoils. There's a channel called Boring Revolution that he talks about this stuff more, and he knows more about it. I would encourage you to watch Boring Revolution. If you're really into Boring Company, that's the channel you should be watching. So, we need to find out. Oh, so Jay Lizard says, will the Model S Plaid force police departments to get Teslas to keep up with speeders? No, I don't think that that's normally the strategy. First of all, there are already very fast cars on the road. I think police have tried using very fast cars. It turns out that a radio is faster than a car, and you just radio ahead to another police officer, and they can set up a roadblock if they need to. Breakneck Trent asks, 4680s in Plaid. This is, by the way, YouTube channel members get to ask questions as well. So Breakneck Trent is asking as a YouTube channel member rather than as a Patreon supporter. You can join the channel on YouTube. Please do so. I personally prefer Patreon, but YouTube channel membership is great. If that's what you're more comfortable with, please join on the YouTube channel. I do see YouTube channel members in the chat. If I get a different look at you on the, maybe you guys can see that in the chat as well. So I know who's a channel member, and I really appreciate that as well. And the exclusive content members on the YouTube channel get early access to videos as well, and they get additional content. I try to do the same for them as I do for Patreon. I just have a lot more Patreon supporters than I have YouTube channel members, so I tend to do more on Patreon. And Patreon members can message me. I don't think YouTube channel membership includes a messaging feature. So, Breakneck Trent asks, 4680s in Plaid. They're producing some at CATA. What else are they currently using them for? So, first of all, I addressed this earlier in the Plaid section of the video, but no, they're not using 4680s in Plaid. They're not using 4680s in Model S. They are using the 1865 cells. They just made a lot of radical improvements in the vehicle, and particularly in getting the weight down, and particularly in getting a lot more horsepower out of those motors to be able to achieve what they achieved. How much of the new Model S Plaid tech do you think will make it to Cybertruck? I think a lot. That's also from Breakneck Trent. Yes, I think all of it. I think that the carbon sleeve rotor will... That's a tough one. Because Elon referred to it as Plaid. The tri-motor Cybertruck is Plaid, but the tri-motor Cybertruck's only $70,000. I would guess maybe there's going to be a Plaid Plus version of Cybertruck to get the carbon sleeve rotors. It's going to be a tri-motor. I think that the things that they learned about keeping weight down are going to be applied to Cybertruck as well. I've been saying this for a while. Cybertruck's going to be a lot lighter than people think. I do not think any of the Cybertrucks will weigh more than 5,000 pounds because they've said they're going to have a 3,500 pound payload rating, and to keep it under 8,500 pounds to stay a Class 2A work truck. I forget what the classification is. There's a classification of work truck where the gross vehicle weight rating is less than 8,500 pounds. Well, if you're going to have 3,500 pounds in the payload, then you can't have more than 5,000 pound vehicle. So I think the tri-motor is going to be 5,000 pounds or just under 5,000 pounds. The dual motor is going to be significantly less than that. And the single motor is going to be even less. So, and Jay Lizard asks, can it be a problem if construction companies say they will pay for boring projects and then change their minds halfway through a project and decide to put a tunnel someplace else, leaving behind an uncompleted mess? I don't understand the problem you're suggesting. I think that that's true of any project anywhere, whether it's a boring project or not. You start building a building and then stop. I think that can happen with anything. Okay, so let me turn to regular Q&A. Thank you, Breakneck Trent. I see Breakneck Trent in the chat. I answered your questions. I give Patreon supporters and YouTube channel members advance on the questions. They get advance notice of what the content's going to be so they can ask the right questions. Yeah, Rob Markovich, I agree that V2G is not that useful. I'm just saying I spoke with some people, and I've been very, very skeptical about V2G, and I'm a little less skeptical now. Give us your opinion on Dave Lee and Gary tweets. Gary Black has blocked me, and I don't usually see a lot of Dave Lee tweets, so I don't know what you guys are talking about Dave Lee and Gary. I guess I would say tag me in a reply to or retweet whatever you're talking about, and I'll see it later. I just literally have no idea what you're talking about. I mean, I know who Gary Black is. I know who Dave Lee is. I've been interviewed by Dave Lee. I think Dave Lee's great. I'm not a huge fan of Gary Black. That's a long conversation. I will say this. I think Gary Black portrays himself as a Tesla bull, and I think Gary Black is a short-term trader. And we had a lot of arguments about that, and then he blocked me, and then I blocked him. So is the 20... I blocked him because I saw he was responding to in my tweet threads, even though he blocked me. So I don't... If you block me, I'm going to block you because I don't want you participating in my tweet thread, then I can't see what you said. You're having a conversation with people who are following me, and I can't participate. I can still see it by switching to one of my other accounts, but... Is the 2022 Model Y going to have the 4680 cells? When will the 2022 Model Y be released? That's from Mr. Seneway John. I believe that the 2022 Model Y may be... I think they're going to start putting them out at the end of this year. I think they're going to have 4680 high nickel cells. I think that's the plan. I don't see any other way of doing it. Maybe there's a plan to make Berlin and Texas Model Ys without structural pack, or maybe they're going to do structural pack with 2170 cells. I was trying to get an answer to that question, and I did not get an answer to that question. Did I get a chance to say hello to Elon? No. Oh, Gary Block. I like it. I like it. Alexandra asked, did I meet him on Thursday? If you mean Gary Black, I met Gary Black. We had a pleasant conversation. Short but pleasant conversation. I found him likable in person, just not on Twitter. So, you'll hear me okay. Do I have any Tesla leaps? I don't generally buy options. I made one exception to that, which I've talked about in the past. Biggest takeaway from the Plaid event? Great question, Marty Party. I think the biggest takeaway from the Plaid event was the radical reduction of weight that no one's talking about, reinforced by the conversations I had, that the weight savings, this is a company that really, actually Sandy Monroe talked about this, maybe Elon talked about this, that they incentivize employees to find ways to save weight. If you save 1 gram, you get this reward. If you save 5 grams, you get this reward. You can incentivize your employees to find ways to save weight. Saving weight is really, really huge. I think the other big takeaway is that the innovation is not stopping, that they're going full steam ahead, and their biggest challenge, they believe their biggest challenge is to hire great engineers. Well, you don't need great engineers if you're not continuing to make radical innovation. So they want to continue doing radical innovation, and that's what that's about. Fred Jessup, thank you, Fred, for your support. And Fred, I believe, is the source of my battery cell. He's got it in his image there. Check out Fred Jessup. This is the 4680 cell. Thank you, Fred. If Tesla is this performance with 1865 cells, what will they achieve with 4680 and structural pack? Don't forget that this is a high-end model, and they were able to spend more money and use more expensive materials, maybe, to make the Tesla Model S. The Model Y is going to be a mass market vehicle, so they may be using less expensive materials. I do think that ultimately 4680 and structural pack will be amazing. It's really hard to, I've been very optimistic in the past. I feel like I think one of the other takeaways from the event to relate to this is I feel like I missed something in the past in the way I talked about this event. I think a lot of us jumped the gun and thought they were going to surprise us with more. And there were basically no surprises in the event presentation. I got a lot out of conversations afterwards, but there were no surprises in the event presentation. It was almost, I would say, borderline a letdown. I mean, if you're there and you got to do the ride and you got to talk to people and have these conversations, and both the Tesla community and then people who work for Tesla, it was great. But I think just watching it on video might have been a bit of a letdown. I can tell you that being in person, it was not a letdown, and there's a lot of hope there. Klaus Wickman, thank you very much for your support. Let's see. Please talk about how radical the driver's side vent is on Plaid, the binnacle itself. John, I didn't get that, John. I didn't get that out of the event. I mean, I think that what they're doing with the vents on, I don't know if you're talking about internal or external. I think the venting is something that we've already been doing on Model 3 and Model Y, and maybe that's the part that they make a lot of. Who had the best and worst speculation score hard pre-event? That's a tough one, Katie. I think that, the biggest bulls were wrong. And I'm not sure who was more skeptical about it. I will say that in the future, when there's an event coming up, I'm going to be a little more calm about what's coming. So, I think that some changes happening faster, some changes happening slower. No clue about European Cybertruck. It didn't come up. Your guess on when we can see the first robo-taxi on the street? I still say 2022, but it's, again, like I feel like I got overly optimistic about this event, so maybe I'm being overly optimistic about self-driving vehicles. That, I should say, that is part of a conversation I had with people who are really important. Talked about, let's say we talked about when, whether an 8-year-old will ever get a driver's license. Whether the robo-taxi network will be up and running before a person who's 8 years old today will get a driver's license. And I would say the prevailing impression inside Tesla is, oh, absolutely. Like, that's not even a close call. I didn't get a number, I didn't get a prediction, and I'm not talking about, Andrei Karpathy wasn't there. I didn't get to talk to Andrei Karpathy. But just my general sense of people in the company, robo-taxi network is coming fairly soon. Now, I'm saying next year. They didn't say that. Maybe they're thinking 2023, 2024. I don't know. But, they don't think it's going to be 2030. It's going to be before 2030. It's going to be well before. I would say, based on that conversation, I would say 2025 at the latest. And then we didn't get to how soon. Just like my gut hunch from everything. So anyway, let's see. Why don't they use cameras to project views on your dash that mimic side mirrors? I think that's something that people have talked about doing, and it may come. In fact, I think the Cybertruck prototype doesn't have side mirrors, but I could be wrong. Let's see. I'm just looking at questions now. Sorry, let me switch this over here so I can see it better. Why do you do that to me? I hate Windows. So haven't I mentioned I hate Windows? What are you doing to me? Windows is a pain. I'll just say it right now. Windows is a pain. Okay. What? No, that's not what I was trying to do. This is awful. I'm trying to put the chat near the camera so I don't have to look so far away to see it. All right, that's good enough. Rob Maurer was closest to expectations. I believe that. I should have watched Rob more. What's to stop an idiot from driving an ICE vehicle in a boring tunnel? There are gates that prevent unauthorized vehicles from getting in. That's what prevents an ICE vehicle from getting into a boring tunnel. That was from Martin. Mama Tesla, I don't know what that is. Any chance Tesla sack off plans to make a factory abroad to make another in the US to take advantage of the EV credit? I think that Austin is going to produce a lot of vehicles. I definitely think there's a chance for a Tesla factory on the East Coast of the United States. I'm not sure it's going to be necessary or wise for them to do it, but it's definitely a possibility. Is Plaid S really the best car? Personally, I mean, like, if I could have a Plaid S, I would take it over. I personally think the long range is a car that's more appropriate for me, and I want the Cybertruck. So it's the fastest performing production car on the planet, Plaid Model S. And it's also a very comfortable luxury vehicle that's very practical. So it's like faster than a Ferrari and arguably more comfortable than, as comfortable as a Mercedes S-Class. Or close. Let's see. How hard will Kimball Musk be pushing for destination restaurants? I don't have any impression that Kimball is trying to do like a mass expansion of restaurants. I haven't seen anything like that. Maybe it's going to happen, but I haven't seen it. Disco says, I think Super Heavy might be able to get Cyber to Mars. I think that Starship would be able to get a much larger payload to Mars than Cybertruck. Yes. Somebody's putting in tweets from Gary to Dave. Just don't do that. And if I would ask the moderators, if you see people tweeting about Gary and Dave tweets, just I'm not going to comment on tweets I haven't read. I'm not going to read them in here. Did Everyday give you any scoops on the SN flights? We talked about the Starship test flights. I think it's been a really big ordeal for him to. If you don't support Everyday Astronaut yet, I would encourage you to support him. He does a lot of hard work to make these things go. I think he was concerned that they weren't having enough fun, that he wants it to be fun. I don't think he had any. I don't know if he has any inside information on Starship flights, but I think he really enjoys being down there. He really enjoys talking about it. I think he's taking a break from it. And big goal for him is to make sure that it stays fun. He wants to have fun. That's a good thing. All right, let me scroll down here and see what other questions are coming. What did I think about the interior? Hey, I'm not a guy who cares about that stuff. I bought a Volkswagen Passat for $18,000. It felt very, very comfortable to me. I thought the rear seat of the Plaid, like my own gut feel, and I would say go sit in one when you get a chance. I felt like the rear seat was a little too low for where my feet were. So my knees stuck up a little bit. I don't know if that's like a fair impression or like I was in the car for 45 seconds and there were a lot of people getting in and out. They had extra Model S's that you could sit in and Model X's you could sit in. I just didn't get into that. So I didn't notice. And I should have. There's one of those things where you finish something, you're like, oh, I should have done this, so I should have done that. And, I was tired. I don't think I mentioned I pulled an all-nighter the night of the event. I didn't sleep because I had a flight the next morning. And I stayed up at the after party till the after party went to like 3 or 4 in the morning. And then I had to gut it out to make my 11 a.m. flight, and so there were like 3 hours in there, 3-4 hours in there. They were really hard. Once I got on the plane, I was able to crash and sleep. So that was hard. I don't recommend all-nighters. I will say this, my tips for doing an all-nighter. Number one, and I made some mistakes here. Number one, take a nap during the day before you're going to do your all-nighter. I've done this before and it's worked out well for me. Number two, drink coffee. Oh, number three, don't do it. It's bad for your health. This can't be good for your health. I should not do this anymore. Let's see. Number four. I'm trying to think of what else I want to tell you. You got to make a decision. Am I really going to pull an all-nighter or not? I think my biggest mistake was at a certain point in time, I should have said, you know what? I don't need to pull an all-nighter. I'm going to get a hotel room. And I should have made that decision. Problem is, if you're only going to get like 2 hours of sleep, then maybe it's not worth getting 2 hours of sleep. So, all right. Hey, Warren, what technology from Plaid do you think will get transferred to Cybertruck? I think I answered that already earlier in this section. How many cars will Tesla deliver in Q2 2021 globally? I saw an estimate of 230,000 from somebody outside, but maybe that's a little optimistic. Should be over 200,000, 210. If it hits 230, that's a really, really positive sign for Tesla. I think the addition of the Model S deliveries is going to help get there. I don't know if the Model S long range is as low as the Model S Plaid. That's an interesting thought. I don't know the answer to. If Tesla can't transition the world to EVs by itself, then how could it also not be worthwhile for them to buy ICE car companies and use their production capacity? The ICE production capacity is not useful because their factories are not designed correctly. It's easier to build a new factory than it is to use an ICE car company factory. We see that with Fremont. Fremont was built in an ICE car factory, and it's not ideal, and it makes a lot more sense to do it another way. Yes, I talked about my conversation with Gary. It was very brief. There's not a lot to talk about. We talked a little bit about how we grew up and about living within your means. That's the right term. It was a pleasant conversation. And we didn't hug. I think we shook hands. Tesla can be thought of as multiple startups, noticing some names: Tesla Vision, Tesla Audio, Tesla Automation. No, Tesla's startups are Tesla Vehicles, Tesla Energy, Tesla Solar is probably its own startup. Tesla Battery is probably its own startup. Tesla AI is its own startup. I'm not sure what the other ones are. I don't know if that's ever been spelled out. see. Are big sedans making a comeback? I don't think so, Katie. I think the future is small vehicles that carry smaller numbers of people. But I could be wrong. And large vehicles to carry large numbers of people. David Todd says, do I know what cities are looking into having the boring structure this year or next year? Miami, Florida is very clearly looking at doing a boring project. Most people think something's going to happen in Austin, Texas. There's a small boring company project going to happen in Rancho Cucamonga, California, Ontario County, California, something like that. Maybe Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I think Orlando will probably happen at some point. Orlando and Tampa. So then there's a challenge of how do you get, they got to scale up boring company. You know, that's why I wanted to invest in boring company to help with the funding round, but we'll see. How late did your after party? The after party went to like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I just stayed up after that and gutted it out. Anything about an RV? It wasn't talked about an RV. I think an RV should come. Warren needs to have an intermission. Yeah, I am tired, aren't I? Do I think Tesla will have high demand for their vehicles on long term, say 2025 plus? This is a great question, CM. Thank you. Yes, I think Tesla has the demand for quality EVs is really high, and as Tesla innovates and comes out with vehicles that deliver more for less money and deliver more efficiency and more quality and better experience, the demand is I think the demand is effectively unlimited as long as they continue to grow and innovate. There's nobody else that's innovating the way they are. So, and if all they do is to make Model Ys better and then make them less expensive, that's it. K Bingo asks, and hi, nice to see you, K Bingo. Thank you for joining the channel and thank you for your support. She asks, have I looked at Arcimoto? I'm aware of Arcimoto. I've looked at them a little bit. I actually just got invited to try an Arcimoto. Somebody that's associated, I don't think he's an employee of Arcimoto, but somebody's associated with Arcimoto, some kind of partner, apparently they have operations in Coral Springs, which is really close to me, and offered to let me drive it. So I think there's a really good chance I will drive an Arcimoto within about a month, and I will make a video about that experience. I think that the 3-wheel design is a fundamentally flawed design, but I don't know enough. I'm not qualified to say that. Sandy Monroe thinks it's a good design. I think that the small vehicle is not going to have a market that people are going to want to buy it in large quantities. I think the value of the small vehicle is as a robo-taxi. If I want to ride from point A to point B, and as long as I'm confident you're going to deliver that ride to me safely and comfortably, then I don't care whether it's a small vehicle or a large vehicle. Just get me there. When I go for Uber, I don't go for large Ubers. I take whatever comes. If it's a Toyota Corolla, I get in a Toyota Corolla. If it's an SUV, I get in an SUV. I don't care. If I want to ride, I just want to get there. Adelanto is not doing boring projects. Adelanto, Alex Yvette says that he thinks the city in Southern California already signed a deal for boring. I'm not sure technically Adelanto is in Southern California. Adelanto is a piece of land, is a place where Tesla bought like a 20-acre piece of land where they're testing out their tunnel boring technology and machines. Do a video on how much money AutoBidder can make. AutoBidder's over my head, Brooke. Spark Spread does videos about that. I did a video about Tesla Energy, but it wasn't really about AutoBidder. I'm not sure AutoBidder is as important as peak shaving. When I saw how Tesla sells Tesla Energy, Tesla Powerwall, and Megapack to businesses, they didn't talk about AutoBidder. They talked about peak shaving, which is maybe more important. But the price of electricity is high at a certain period of time in the day, and if you can charge up your battery pack when the price is lower and then discharge the battery pack, use that electricity when the price is higher, that's more valuable than AutoBidder, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, geez, I hate this question. Safe Aladar. Warren, if you could ask Elon only one question, what would it be? Elon, would you come on my YouTube channel for an interview so I could ask you a lot of questions? When Mars, I think Elon has said they're going to do, he's still hopeful they're going to be able to do an uncrewed mission to Mars in 2024. I mean, if you look at the progress on Starship, that is some rapid progress. Rapid progress. Am I more bullish after the event? It's hard to be more bullish than I already was. I would say no, I'm not more bullish. I'm also not less bullish. I am about as bullish as it gets, and I'm not more bullish. Damien says, Warren, was your drawing of a single-person boring tunnel vehicle a 3 or 4? It's a 4-wheel vehicle. It's a 4-wheel vehicle. I'm basically imagining taking a Model 3 and scrunching it down. Let's see. Did I discuss Bitcoin with anyone at the event? No, I'm not a Bitcoin cryptocurrency. I don't remember cryptocurrency coming up at all at any point in the pre-party, during the event, after party. I don't remember anybody talking about Bitcoin. Maybe somebody talked about it somewhere, but I didn't hear it. I don't think it's a terribly exciting topic. At least if this wasn't the place for it. What does shrinking sedan market mean for Model S then? I don't think Model S market size, Model S is not, to me, okay, Model S is not a critical vehicle for the future of the company. My impression is that demand for Model S is off the charts high. Demand for the new Model X is off the charts high. That there still is a market for sedans, especially in other parts of the world, and people will buy them like crazy. I think we're going to see more than 120,000 vehicles a year between Model S and Model X over the, maybe not 2022, but 2023. Mark Plott says, Warren, Fort Lauderdale is close to boring deal. Thoughts? I think Miami is closer than Fort Lauderdale, but I'm not sure. The Fort Lauderdale thing that I'm aware of is a train tunnel, which is a different diameter tunnel than Boring Company is supposed to do. So I'm not sure what the idea is there. I don't have an answer for that. I reached out to Miami to find out more about what they're doing with Boring Company. I don't think I'm going to get an answer yet. Isn't it most likely that Elon took, this is from Steven, isn't it most likely that Elon took Plaid Plus off the menu because of the shortage of 4680 batteries for larger structural pack? No. My impression, why did they take Plaid Plus off the table? Number one, the performance gain going from Plaid to Plaid Plus is not that high. 0 to 60 times almost identical. Quarter mile time is a little faster in Plaid Plus, but not that much faster. I think the top speed's the same. I think it's the engineering. The amount of engineering that, as I mentioned earlier, maybe the biggest takeaway is that Tesla is engineer starved. They need more quality engineers. And to do the project of making the Plaid Plus would require a lot of engineering resources that could be devoted to finishing Roadster, which is going to be a higher performance vehicle anyway. Think about it. If you were going to buy a Plaid Plus for 170,000, whatever it was going to be, you might as well spend 200,000 and get a Roadster, right? So taking the same resources that would have gone into Plaid Plus and putting it in Roadster makes a lot more sense. And that frees up resources to do other engineering projects. So that's, I don't think it has to do with 4680 at all. I think 4680 is going well. I haven't heard anything to make me think otherwise. And I had conversations that went in that ballpark area, and I didn't hear anything to change my mind about that. Eve Evans says, Starlink is looking like it's making some real progress. Would you divert any of your capital currently in Tesla to Starlink if there was an IPO, or do you only use potentially new capital? I would not invest. I have had the opportunity to invest in SpaceX and chosen not to invest in SpaceX because I did not like the terms of the investment. This is like a venture capital fund where you would put like a 5 or 6% commission, then 2% management fee every year, and then sorry. Well, thank you, Breakneck Trent, for your support. Yes, please smash the like button or subscribe to the channel or support the channel on Patreon. Wait, where'd that question go? Sorry. Now I lost that question. I don't know what I was asking. No, I don't think Sandy will buy a Plaid and do a teardown. Unfortunately, I forgot what the question was, and I better move on because I don't want to sit here staring at this all day. Have I seen the BMW Isetta? It's a tiny car that has a door on the front instead of the sides. I have not seen that. I've seen that there's a lot of different small vehicle designs. I think what they all miss is they're all designed for a driver, and my idea is for one that, like, from the get-go says you're not going to drive, you're not even going to look forward. You enter from the rear so that you can make the shell that's facing front as aerodynamic as possible without any doors or any windows or anything else, and less structure as possible, so that you make the vehicle as low cost as possible. Oh, Starlink. Would I invest in Starlink? That was the question. Would I invest in SpaceX, Starlink? So I've decided not to invest in SpaceX because the commission cost, the management fee, and the carried interest that, you know, they take 20% off your gain at the end. It's a very expensive investment if you succeed. I think Tesla is going to grow just as much as SpaceX from here. SpaceX is currently ballpark $100 billion company. Tesla is currently a $600 billion company. SpaceX could 10x from here. Tesla could 10x from here. SpaceX could 50x from here. Tesla could 50x from here. I don't see that SpaceX inherently is likely to grow more than Tesla. And I can buy Tesla without paying a commission, without paying a management fee, and without paying carried interest. So I would rather buy Tesla. Now, if Starlink does an IPO, that eliminates all those expenses. And then I would buy as much in the IPO as I could, depending on how it's priced. So if Starlink does an IPO and it's valued at $200 billion, I'm gonna put as much as I can in that, because I think Starlink goes to somewhere between $1 and $5 trillion in valuation in the future. And I've made videos where I talked about that before. So, but would I sell Tesla stock to do that? Probably not. It depends what Tesla stock is valued at the time and where I see Tesla stock going, because you can't make that judgment now. You got to see the judgment then. Next big catalyst for Tesla, in my opinion. I don't like answering short-term questions because I see things like I thought Battery Day should have been a huge catalyst for Tesla, and it wasn't. I think Berlin and Texas producing vehicles is probably going to be a catalyst, but it's so hard to figure out how Wall Street cannot value Tesla properly now. Who's to say they're not going to screw that up too? What are my thoughts on Tesla opening up for other EVs worldwide? I don't mean by open up, IK. I don't know what that means. What app do I use for IPO trading? I don't know that there is. I didn't know there were apps for IPO trading. I just invest through Fidelity. And if there's an IPO, I would see if I could get in on the IPO through Fidelity. Maybe I would see if I could pull some other strings to get in on it, but I doubt I would be able to do that. Was there any talk of sodium-ion batteries at the event? No. Yeah, I think I agree with Eddie that as supercharging improves, and they just improved it quite a bit, and they're going to expand the number of superchargers, the battery pack becomes less and less necessary over time. I believe that Starlink will IPO in the next year or two. I'm only guessing, though. What do I think of a Tesla fire truck platform used for large? I think there's a great potential for some kind of platform off the Cybertruck model or the Semi model, and I just don't know enough to say what it's going to be. Will they go faster in Vegas boring tunnels? Model S Plaid's perfect power curve. Got two different things there, Kathy. Thank you for your support. I think they will definitely go faster in boring tunnels over time. I think the Vegas loop is such a short thing that there's not much advantage. You don't really gain anything by going 100 miles an hour because you have to slow up when you get to the next station anyway. So 40 miles an hour, we caught up to the cars in front of us. So I don't think it matters that much. If there are longer stretches of tunnel, it will matter more. And if there's times when the tunnels aren't busy, it will matter more. Do I think Starlink will do safe light phones? I don't think Starlink's technology is appropriate for phones. The size of the antenna needed to make Starlink work is too big to make it work on a phone. And I don't know what a safe light phone is. Do I think the new carbon rotors will replace jet turbines? I don't know enough about jet engines to answer that question, Emmanuel. Thank you for asking, but that's over my head. Is Cato Road going to handle initial Austin, Berlin, and Semi Plus Roadster? Rob, I think you mean the battery factory. I definitely think that they're producing batteries in Cato Road, and they will use some of them. Did Elon say what type of batteries are in the Plaid S? I am very, very confident. Without talking to Elon, I'm very, very confident that the Plaid Model S and the Model S Long Range and the Model X's will all use 1865 cells, period. They are not doing structural pack. They are not doing 4680 cells. Did I hear Starlink made deals with airlines? I heard that Starlink works on an airplane. I didn't hear about any deals with airlines yet. What did you need to do? Have to get an invite to placement in Starlink? I did not have an invite to a placement in Starlink. I had an opportunity through, there are websites like EquityZen and Shares Post where you can get access to funds that already have SpaceX stock. And I just didn't think it was worth doing. So look at EquityZen and look at Shares Post. Plaid motors and aircrafts, maybe. Maybe. I don't know enough about aircrafts to answer that question. If they would lengthen the Semi, there could be creations. I think that there's potential applications for Semi in larger versions of Semi and smaller versions of Semi. What about the Ford F-350? Ford F-350, F-450, F-550 are smaller than Semi and larger in capacity than Cybertruck. What if would you make a larger version of Cybertruck, or would you make a smaller version of Semi for that? That's a good question. 4680, I'm pretty confident will be in Cybertruck, and I'm pretty confident that 4680 will at least initially be in the next generation Model Y. I think the next generation Model Y is going to be a high-end vehicle. I don't think it's going to be cheap for a while. News about Tesla China. I didn't hear anything. The only thing I heard about Tesla China was that they're cracking down on people defaming Tesla, and it's working, and people are apologizing now for saying bad things about Tesla. Have I heard news about the Elon companies combining into one? No, I have not heard news about that. I do not think that's going to happen. I never thought that was going to happen. I made a video about a way it could happen, but it wouldn't be combining into one. Mavace says, you projected 10,000 Plaid sales a month. Elon said 4,000. No, Elon said, I thought he said 1,000 a week. I think when I said 10,000, that's 10,000 Model S and X together, Plaid and long range together, 10,000 sales a week, not 10,000 Plaids a week. No, not 10,000 Plaids a month, 10,000 of all the vehicles together. The Model S and Model X, long range and Plaid together, I think they could hit 10,000 or more sales a month by 2023, if not in 2022. Why did they get rid of the brake calipers? I have no idea. I don't pay attention to details like that. Will 4680 be in all models of Cybertruck or only tri-motor? I think it's going to be in all models of Cybertruck, but the single motor Cybertruck is not going to happen for a while. I think single motor Cybertruck may not come out until 2024, if ever. So I think 4680 high nickel cells will be in both Cybertruck tri-motor and Cybertruck dual motor. Give us some of the after-hours rumors you heard from various Tesla people. I don't remember hearing rumors. I remember people having a good time. I think we were done talking about Tesla. I don't like whatever that is. I didn't take notes on those conversations like I did on everything else. Let's see. I'm looking on my list of on the chat here to see if there's other questions I didn't answer. Yes, please like this video. Thank you for your whatever support you can do. Greatly appreciated. What time is it? 2:53. Okay, we got about 2 hours. Sodium-ion batteries. Let's see. The best Plaid is no Plaid Plus. Interesting. I like that, Mark. Tunnels would be a great place to utilize ground inductive charging. I don't think that's the idea, but I'm not sure. Drago says, could it be Tesla's next product will be a microcar like Fiat 500 or smart car for exclusively urban use? I think that's possible. It's definitely not going to be a single passenger car. It could be a 2-passenger car. I'm just not sure. That's like that speculation that I'm getting. I feel like I was so wrong on this event. I don't know. Aaron asked this question: was Tesla Plaid motor a sign of things to come? High-end in-house motor, then high-volume, low-cost motor for compact. I think it's possible. I think this carbon fiber sleeve might be too hard to do at scale. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe. It would make sense to me, and they are looking for engineers for handling that type of thing, so it would make sense. Did I see a Model X with the all-new interior? Yes, I did. I think if you look at the live stream, I think they showed the interior of the Model X somewhere in there. I think that 4680 cells will be used for, this is Lei Zhao's question. 4680 cells will be used for Semi, for Cybertruck, and the next generation Model Y. I think that's it. Maybe I'm missing something, but that's what I think it's going to be. And then ultimately, I think a couple years from now, the suppliers will have 4680 cells of different chemistries, and then those will go into some vehicles too. Did I get the sense that Tesla dumbed down the presentation? Other presentations were too general technical for the general public. I don't know if I would say dumbed down. I think they decided to do less content. I think they rushed the presentation. I heard, oh, that's another insider detail. The presentation wasn't ready until an hour before the event. They had something to go with if the presentation wasn't ready. But the details of the presentation, the thing that Elon was reading off the videos that were presented, that wasn't ready until 6:30 p.m. and the gates opened at 7:15 and Elon took the stage around 8:30. So it was really last minute on this. I think that it's more important that they put the time into engineering than into making presentations. No word on AI Day. My guess would be that the annual shareholder meeting, which might be July, might be September, that meeting will have an event. Did I hear anything more on Tesla Whole Home? This is a really good question. Tramp Fossil says, did I hear anything more on Tesla Whole Home? Not on Tesla Home. There's a guy, I want to say his name's Honorbeek, but I'm not sure. Anuarbek, something like that. He lives in Austin. He seems to know a lot of people at Tesla. He's one of these insiders. I had a good conversation with him. He has a startup. I've talked about we need startups doing housing like Tesla-style housing, first principles, innovation. He has a startup that's working on it. I know it's not the angle I would take, but I would say he's probably better placed than I am to make these decisions. And they may be working with Tesla for housing for workers because there's a shortage of housing in Austin, Texas. But so not Tesla Whole Home, but something like that. Anyone recognize the balls on the roof of the car? Those were for telemetry. The speed wasn't from the car speedometer. I did not see that. Let's see. Any dojo updates? No dojo updates. That did not come up at all. Karpathy wasn't there. If I had had a chance to talk to Karpathy, I would have asked him about something like that. I could ask a lot of questions for Karpathy, I can tell you that. Have I ridden in an FSD beta car? Do you have plans to arrange it? I have not yet. I think Tesla Tino has one, and he's probably going to take me for a drive at some point. I probably had the opportunity to do it at the pre-event or at the post-event, but I didn't bother. I don't know. I've seen enough. I don't know that the experience of riding is going to be different than all the FSD beta videos I've watched, and I think there's we're waiting for the next jump for version 9. So, thank you, Gary. Racetrack instructors wondering if there was any talk about disabling traction control to demo smoking all 4 tires to show what a 1,000 horsepower EV can do. I didn't hear any talk about it at all. I don't think that's going to be more impressive than doing a 9.2 second quarter mile that they just did twice. When Jay Leno did it once and a professional driver did it another time. When do I think the first Cybertruck will be delivered, keeping in mind it would need 4680? I think that Cybertruck is going to be delivered early next year, if not end of this year. I would love to interview Karpathy. I don't think it's going to happen. Did I mention waypoints? Are they implemented or not? Elon was teasing. The audience really wants him to do waypoints. He said, okay, I'll do waypoints. I'm not sure he's serious. I don't know. Did my pass get me a +1? I don't know what a +1 is. Oh, no. No, I didn't get a +1. It was an invitation for me only. People who were picking up a new Tesla Model S had a +1. People who had other passes did not have a +1. Will Texas open before Berlin? I think it's a close call. Fastest production car from Tesla. You think Ferrari will be out of business? No. I think it could be having a negative impact on sales of cars like Ferraris and Porsches and Mercedes S-Class. I definitely think there's potential. And you can look at what happened with Porsche with the Panamera and the Taycan. That this year in the United States, sales of the Panamera have tanked and have been replaced and exceeded by sales of the Taycan, the electric vehicle. So I am hopeful that other car companies will make EVs that are better than their own ICE vehicles, and their production will shift as well. Why doesn't the Model X let you remotely close your vent windows? I don't know anything about that. So I think 3D printing will make its way into Tesla production, like 3D printed housing with integrated power wall. My impression is that 3D printing does not scale. for large-scale production. It is very useful producing small things that are not needed in high volume. I could be wrong. Any talk on when semi will be launched did not come up in conversation anywhere at all. I wasn't asking and no one was talking about it. Would an even smaller diameter boring tunnel make sense for pod cars? That's a really interesting thought. I have thought that if you get the tunnels down to 14 feet, which is the current, you're saving. So I wouldn't say you go down to 5 feet, but what if you went to 7 feet? You went to 7 feet in diameter, that would be half again the diameter of current boring company tunnel, and that would be a quarter of the work again. So that, I think that would make sense, and not just for that purpose, but for other purposes. What I've heard though is that if you make the tunnel too small, like you do 7 feet, then you shore up the walls, you probably only have 6 feet left. It's hard for people to walk in, and it's hard to service the tunnel if the tunnel is too small. I don't know. I mean, I think there's potential for that idea. I'm just not sure how well it would work. Will FSD become a huge legal liability for Tesla? No. No, FSD will become a huge legal gain for Tesla and for humanity. Will they ever consider adding a gear for improving range like Porsche does? I would say pretty clearly they've thrown a smackdown to that. No. They do not need to add a gear to improve range. They got a lot more range than Porsche. What was the Declan Murphy shirt? What was that? Physics is a law, everything else is a regulation. What was that? Where's Declan? Physics is the law, everything else is a recommendation. I think it's too long for a shirt. Did I put an order in yet for a personal loopster? I don't know what a personal loopster is. Have I ever felt the way I do about Tesla about any other company? I feel roughly the same way about I feel roughly the same way about all of Elon Musk's companies. I felt very strongly about Amazon in 2013 and continue to feel very positively about Amazon. I have hopes for Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods, and the lab-based meat and plant-based meat industry. I have to think about that. Nothing pops into mind. It depends whether you mean as an investor or as changing life for everyone. Amazon really made our lives better. People don't get it. How much better Amazon has made our lives. What is a personal loopster? What is that? By what year will ICE vehicles be too dorky to be seen in? 2030, 2028, something like that? I think in some places in the country, it's already odd not to be in a Tesla. Like parts of Fremont, California, and parts of California where they're very, very common. Will organizations like BART or municipal transit organizations initiate lawsuits to stop Boring Company? Could those lawsuits be successful? So I think you're going to see resistance to Boring Company from special interests, not at the legal level, but at the political level. Just like we see resistance against Tesla selling cars in states where the dealerships have a lot of political influence. I don't think it's going to be litigation. And no, I don't think those lawsuits would be successful. Any talk on when the Semi will be launched? I answered that. I don't know. Do I agree with George Hotz when he says level 5 means the auto manufacturer is liable in an FSD accident? Yes, I think any manufacturer who makes an ADAS system, a system that is supposed to prevent an accident, if that system fails, I think they may be liable anyway. I don't think the theory is that the level system creates some legal standard, and I don't believe that I'm a lawyer. I'm a car accident lawyer by training. I don't think the level system saying, well, my vehicle's only level 2 protects the manufacturer from liability. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I just haven't put that much thought into it. The reality is, if the vehicles drive that much safer, then it's not a legal liability. It's a legal plus because they won't crash. Will America ever see a carbon tax? Looks unlikely. Elon pushed for it and got nothing from the Biden administration, so I would say no. At the event, did you get a sense of people's expectation on the arrival of robotaxi? Does it differ from yours? I didn't really get a sense of anybody. I think people think it's coming. Of the few people that I talked to about it, they didn't really give me a sense of when they think it's coming, and these are people who probably have a better idea than I do. When Tesla insurance widespread? I think Tesla insurance will spread, but I haven't seen much about that. And I don't think Tesla insurance is important for the very long term. It's important for the medium term. After a certain point, it becomes less important. What's your consensus on who bought a Model S Plaid? Are they gear nuts, tree huggers, technocrats, Tesla maximalists, etc.? Not tree huggers. I don't know what a technocrat means. I would say they were Tesla fans primarily, and rich Tesla fans. Can I imagine a world without Tesla today? Yes, I can. I don't like it, but I can imagine it. I should mention, by the way, while I'm waiting to see more questions. I don't see any more questions right now. I just became aware of a podcast called the All In Podcast with Jason Calacanis Chamath. I'm not even going to try to pronounce Chamath's last name. Two Davids, David Sachs and another David Friedberg or something like that. Really cool podcast. I just started watching. They had a podcast about like after SNL where Jason Calacanis had been with Elon for the whole week, helping with the SNL event. There's a lot of really good inside stuff there about that event. If you're interested in Elon's non-engineering side, how customized or different were the delivered cars from each other? I did not look at the delivered cars. I can't answer that question. Do I know anything about Wejo? I don't know what Wejo is at all. Does Tesla make their skateboard available to other auto manufacturers? No. I don't think they will do. They can't make enough of them for themselves. I know roughly how to spell it. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not going to try. People can't pronounce my last name. Let's see. Are German car makers nervous after the Plaid event? I think German car makers have been nervous for a while, and they should be, and they will continue to be nervous. See something here. Okay. Sorry. Will they use the Plaid motor in the Cybertruck or Semi? Semi is an interesting idea. Would it make sense to use the Plaid carbon sleeve rotor motor in Semi? That's an interesting idea because Semi is an expensive enough vehicle that it would make sense. It doesn't make sense to me in Cybertruck. That Cybertruck is the tri-motor is so relatively inexpensive. If they're not using it in regular Model S, why would they use it in a $70,000 Cybertruck? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe if they can scale up production and get it lower cost. Plaid did not have the extending spoiler. It was a Ryan from Kilowatts specifically looked for that, and I talked to him about it, and he said it did not have the extending spoiler. Maybe that's an aftermarket thing they'll add. Do I believe the Cybertruck will have the same AMD chip for graphics? I think that probably all Tesla vehicles will at least have that as an option in the future. How would autonomous vehicles affect DUI and auto accident personal injury lawsuits? I have a video on my channel, 10 industries that self-driving cars are going to destroy, or that Tesla and Elon Musk will destroy, and I discussed that in depth in that video. I highly recommend that video. It's one of my most viewed videos. I'm going to remake that video at some point. The answer is it should wipe them out. Is the new lithium-ion 12-volt battery lithium iron phosphate? No, it's the same chemistry. It's the same exact chemistry that's the 18s. The one that's in the Model S is the same exact chemistry as in the battery pack, with the idea being you want that battery to last just as long as you want the battery in the car to last. No talk of sound canceling tech. I didn't hear any talk about it. I will just tell you that car was quiet. I think the only thing you heard was a little bit of tire noise. And not a lot, not like squealing tire noise, just like tire rubbing on road noise, and quiet. Quiet. Very, very impressive in terms of silence. If Cybertruck takes 100,000 sales from F-150 a year, is that enough to bankrupt them? Probably not. But I think Cybertruck's going to take more than 100,000 sales from F-150 a year. We'll see. Smaller tunnels for bikes. Interesting. How do I order a plaid back jacket like Elon's? I don't know the answer to that. I don't wear jackets, so me. What do I think about Arcimoto? I answered that earlier in the call. I may get a chance to drive an Arcimoto soon and make a video about it. Offhand, I'm not that impressed with it, but maybe I'll be impressed. I just don't think the market's there for Arcimoto. Is boring likely to bypass stations with offshoot tunnels to reduce slowdowns like the 10 miles per hour at stations? I think that's possible, but I think for really, really heavy, I think it would make sense for really heavy routes. Like if you know there's a lot of people that come in at this point and a lot of people get out at this point, it might make sense to just bore a separate tunnel just for that route. I could see that happening, but that's a big question that I'm not qualified to answer. Let's see. Won't you still need car insurance for an FSD car when someone rear-ends you in a non-FSD vehicle while waiting at a red light? Sure, but that insurance costs a lot less. And you get to the point where all cars are self-driving, then you don't have to worry about it. And you can always get that money. The only reason that would matter is if the car behind you is uninsured. The car that rear ends you is uninsured. That's the only time that matters. So really, you just have uninsured motorist coverage, and that should handle it. How do I think the Plaid release will be reflected in the stock price tomorrow? I thought it was reflected on Friday's stock price. It didn't make a dent. It, dropped initially and then it came back up and it didn't really go anywhere. But I hate making short-term stock price predictions. I'm the wrong. People keep asking me about short-term things on stocks. I have no idea how people make decisions on short-term transactions. I think Tesla's worth like $2,500 a share, $5,000 a share now. Why is it trading at $600 a share? If I can't answer that, how can I answer short-term stuff? Joey's Cleaning Lady says Cybertruck 1.2 million pre-orders, even at a 50% take rate, they would be the third highest volume truck maker. Only if they could make enough volume. If they're only going to make 250,000 to 300,000 a year, they will not be the number 3 truck maker, I don't think. Unless somebody goes under. Will Cybertruck displace F-150 as best-selling truck? Doesn't look like it, Fred. If they're only as far as we know, they're only planning to make 300,000 a year. If they double up and make 600,000 a year, that might be enough to displace F-150. We'll see. Should the media call the Plaid a Mercedes killer? They probably should call it that, yes. Would love to know how many 4680 cells that have in inventory and how many they produce a day. Any guesses? I don't want to guess that. I've been guessing badly lately. What production capacity do I think Giga Texas will have for Cybertruck? 250 to 300,000 a year. Would Arcimoto make sense in India? That's over my head. Arcimoto's too expensive for India. Somebody's going to make a vehicle like that. They got to get the price down to much lower. Comment on short-term price. What did I say, Digital Foods? What did I say about short-term pricing that belongs on a shirt? I can put it on the shirt if you can tell me what I said. I don't remember. What do I think about the government push for 4 mil insurance for semis? I don't think that's very important. It's probably unnecessary. As a personal injury lawyer, I've dealt to some extent. I'm aware of semi accident cases. $1 million is usually enough. It's a rare case where $1 million isn't enough. Warren needs to get a spacesuit from SpaceX, not to wear, just to have hanging in the closet in case of bad weather. I'm in Florida. We don't have bad weather. New UI give hints to the future. I didn't think the user interface was that important. I think we're going to see more on that on Twitter in the near future, maybe. There's definitely a market for a zero-fill option vehicle. I cite the rise of the e-bike. I don't know what a zero-fill option vehicle is. I can't comment on that. Do other EV trucks like Ford have the same EV motor as the Mustang? Comparing to Cybertruck, I guess it's possible the Cybertruck could have the same ones, but it's more mass, so it would make a new one. I'm pretty sure the Ford F-150 Lightning is going to have a different motor than the Mustang Mach-E because the Ford F-150 Lightning is a much, much heavier vehicle. I'm not positive, but I think so. See if more. Warren, EV tax credit going bye-bye, too much benefit to Tesla. I don't see any progress on the EV tax credit. I do think it provides a huge benefit to Tesla, and it's not very, I think if I was Ford or GM, I would look at that and say, hey, wait a minute, they're going to get more money out of this than we will. But, if you want Ford and Chevy and GM to build EVs, you want other companies to build EVs, it depends whether their goal is genuinely to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy or if they're just paying off their political contributors. Miko Drico says, boring is extending question, are they going to build? I don't understand that way you wrote that. Remember talking about come and go on Twitter, Warren? No, I do not remember talking about come and go on Twitter. Will Tesla make a people carrier for the boring tunnel? I think they will. I think they will make a people carrier for the boring tunnel. I think the single passenger vehicle makes the most sense for the boring tunnel, but what do I know? Will Tesla Fremont at Old Newbie plant eventually close? I think they're making a lot of profit on their Model S and Model X vehicles, so no. I think they're still able to make money there. They won't close it. You need more vehicles produced, not less. What do I think of Model S lease price being cheaper per month than payments? I have not seen that. It would make sense because the vehicle is worth so much when it doesn't really lose value, right? Can I get a senior discount on a Tesla? I don't think so. Let me know if you can. I want one. Is the Model S steering column easily removable in anticipation of FSD, or will we see that in the compact? I think if FSD hits before the 2023 compact is released, even if not, I think there will probably be a version of the 2023 compact that has no steering wheel or pedals. How about Tesla getting into smartphones? I think Elon likes to get into businesses that need to be disrupted, and there's a huge potential for massive disruption. I don't think the smartphone industry is that ripe for disruption. What is my expectation for when the start of Cybertruck deliveries will begin? I would say first quarter 2022 at the earliest, but it is somewhat possible they deliver before the end of this year. Engineers could drop the 200 mile per hour speed to increase the range. That is a lot of torque. I don't know if that would make a difference. I mean, the long range doesn't have that much more range. Could you pick the type of car that picks you up in the Vegas loop? There were X's. No, there were X's, Y's, and 3s. That's it. No, you couldn't choose. I suppose if there was a car sitting there, wasn't moving, you could walk up to it. You could get a ride in it. But I didn't try to pick. I just walked up to the nearest car. I don't care what car I get in. I'm just trying to get over there. How about a light rain suit jacket that looks like a SpaceX suit? It rains a fair amount in Florida, so you wear it a lot. Maybe sell in your merch store. I don't think my merch provider has jackets. I don't think they have hoodies. They don't have jackets. And honestly, I think I wear a jacket like once or twice a year in Florida. Sorry. I don't need to wear a jacket for the rain. You don't need to wear a jacket for the rain in Florida. I mean, unless you... That's my opinion. It's a real downpour, then a rain slicker is great, but... Warren, do I have Tesla insurance? I do not have a Tesla, and there's no Tesla insurance in Florida, so no. I believe that Tesla insurance is cheaper for some drivers. Okay, so I am tired, and we are well past 2 hours. We're not close to the 3 hours we sometimes do, but I guess I didn't do as much content as I normally do. I thought I did a lot of content, but I guess not. I guess it was like fast-paced or whatever. So I think it is, I'm going to look for questions. Like, I'm just going to give you guys a little bit more time for questions, but I think it's time to wrap it up. I want to thank everybody for watching. Remind you to check out the merch. Elon Be Less Wrong. Stainless steel water bottles. ElonBits.com. I think at the top of the chat window, you should see a link to the Machine That Builds the Machine t-shirt. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thank you to the moderators for moderating. Thank you to the Tesla team for having me at this event. Thank you for the Boring Company, to Elon, for giving us all hope for the future. Kevin asks, why don't I have a Tesla? I'm not as rich as people think, and the reason I am as rich as I am, I'm not poor, I'll say that, it's because I don't spend money frivolously. I don't need a Tesla. I'm not the kind of driver who gets as much out of a Tesla as other people because I don't drive a lot of miles. I think if you drive a lot of miles, then a Tesla makes a lot of sense. If you drive a very small amount of miles like I do, because I work from home and take my kid to school 2 miles away, and I occasionally go on somewhat longer drives, but total mileage in our family, maybe we do 10,000 miles a year on 2 cars. If you drive 25,000 miles a year, Tesla's a huge advantage. If you drive, my hair has gone plaid. That's funny right there. Thank you, Terry, for your support. Let's see. Okay. So thanks, everyone. Merch, Patreon, support the channel on Patreon. Thank you to the Vasa Law Firm for their support. Links to Patreon below.